the worlds of the heavens starting with Game of Thrones. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Ghost in the Forest. Xia Changqing opened his eyes and looked at this world. The trees were lush with branches, and the sun shone through the branches, dispelling the darkness in the jungle. The surroundings were full of unrecognizable plants, which were extremely lush. Xia Changqing tightened the sword in his hand, feeling the powerful force coming from his body. He didn't know what kind of world he had come to, which made him extremely vigilant. In the previous world, Xia Changqing captured the body of the blood ancestor and squeezed his blood. After Abraham's personal experiment, Xia Changqing used the blood of the blood ancestor. The blood inherited from the angel directly improved Xia Changqing's physical fitness. Unfortunately, the blood of the blood ancestor was not able to inherit the extraordinary power. When he came to his senses, lines of handwriting appeared on the system panel, which was an introduction to this world. The seventh sun, the battle of demons. This is an era of ignorance, and it is also an era of collision between legends and magic. Witches are evil and powerful, with powers that ordinary people can hardly imagine, and the world is extremely afraid of them. Demon hunters hunt witches in mortal bodies to protect the peace of the mortal world. According to legend, the Dark Queen Malkin was imprisoned in a dark underground cage by the legendary demon hunter Gregory many years ago, and no one could find that place. The dark forces were unable to recover because of this. After putting away the system panel, Xia Changqing had a general understanding of this world, a medieval world with magical power. I just don't know if it can help him to strengthen his strength. Xia Changqing looked around the surrounding forest, raised his head, squinted his eyes to observe the direction of the sun, and walked towards the south. For this strange world, Xia Changqing did not have a specific goal, so he just kept moving towards the south. The Valyrian steel sword that had killed the Night King and fought against the blood ancestor has now unfortunately become a hatchet to open up the road. Xia Changqing used it to chop the thorns and weeds blocking the road ahead. This forest is simply a virgin land that has never been set foot on by humans. Therefore, Xia Changqing moved forward very slowly. He looked at the endless dark forest and walked for half a day, but he didn't get out of the forest. Seeing that it was about to get dark, Xia Changqing touched his stomach, and his stomach began to rebel. It was time to find a place to set up camp. I just don't know which little cutie will be lucky enough to be in his stomach tonight. He didn't feel it when he was on the road, but now that he stopped, Xia Changqing felt everything around him with his heart, and the vitality appeared in his ears and in his mind. This primitive jungle is full of vitality everywhere. Just on the branch above Xia Changqing's head, a venomous snake with skin color no different from the bark, crawled over quietly and silently. It raised its front half and attacked Xia Changqing, who startled it. But what made the venomous snake's head ask for trouble was that its body just bounced up and was pulled back by its own shadow. Xia Changqing looked up dimly. He was worrying about how to get food, and now he had it delivered to his door. A venomous snake strangled to death by its own shadow is also the first one in history. Xia Changqing was very skilled in beheading, skinning, and removing the bitter gall. He didn't even need to light a fire. He just put the snake on the ground and a raging flame started. He could also change the size of the fire as he wished. After cutting the snake meat into several pieces, he skewered it on a dagger and roasted it until it was sizzling. Unfortunately, he didn't have any seasonings, so he could only eat the original roasted snake meat. A fragrance drifted through the forest. Carefully, Xia Changqing roasted the snake meat for a little longer. The outside was crispy and the inside was tender. The children next door cried with greed. After a simple dinner, it was completely dark. A bright moon hung in the sky, reflecting in the dark jungle. The horizontal branches looked like the claws of a ghost, which was daunting. Xia Changqing sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that he would have to spend the first day of his arrival in this world in such a dark jungle. After choosing a tall tree, Xia Changqing put his sword on his back and rushed up in a few steps. He lay on his back on a wide branch, and there were shadows around him to warn him. Then Xia Changqing looked at the moon quietly, and for a moment, he was a little dazed. At some point, Xia Changqing had fallen into a deep sleep, and time soon came to the second half of the night. Suddenly, Xia Changqing, who was sleeping, felt a strange feeling. He immediately woke up and opened his eyes vigilantly. The shadow had been controlled by him to protect him. When he saw the scene in front of him clearly, Xia Changqing's pupils suddenly shrank. A ghost with illusory features and a hideous smile on the corners of his mouth let out a sharp whistle and floated over in a way that did not conform to the laws of physics. Xia Changqing was startled. This was the first time he had seen a ghost. Subconsciously, Xia Changqing drew his sword and chopped at the ghost. Winter chopped the ghost's illusory body as if it was chopped in the air. Xia Changqing did not feel that he had chopped the entity, but the ghost seemed to be hurt. It opened its empty mouth and screamed at Xia Changqing again, then passed through Xia Changqing's body. Xia Changqing felt his body go cold and couldn't help shivering, but his powerful blood and ki adjusted immediately. The ghost failed to hit Xia Changqing, turned around in midair, and rushed towards Xia Changqing again. Just as the ghost was about to pass through Xia Changqing's body again, the long sword in his hand suddenly ignited flames, and the magic breaking effect was activated, and the blade slashed through the ghost's illusory body again. In an instant, the ghost's entire body exploded like an inflated balloon, and floated into sparkling fragments. Xia Changqing was stunned. He didn't expect the effect of this sword to be so explosive. The crisis was resolved, and he had time to observe the surroundings. In the shadowy jungle, dancing in the moonlight was the ghost that attacked him just now. It's just that those ghosts are far away and haven't discovered him yet. There were all kinds of tiny sounds in his ears. The howling of wolves seemed close, but actually far away. The unknown plants shone with a faint blue light, and with the embellishment of ghosts, Xia Changqing almost mistakenly thought that he had come to the world of the dead. If you ignore the malicious intentions of those ghosts, the jungle at night is indeed a very beautiful scenery. However, after experiencing the attack just now, Xia Changqing also gave up the idea of continuing to rest. Who knows what kind of monsters he will encounter after he falls asleep. He stared at it until dawn. When a bright light came from the horizon, the ghosts dancing in the jungle also disappeared at the same time, and the whole jungle fell silent for a moment. Chapter 102 Demon Hunter. The dark forest, after a moment of silence, regained its vitality. Various creatures active during the day came out of their nests and started a new day. An early rising hare was lucky to become Xia Changqing's breakfast. He touched his stomach. The problem of food did not need to be considered, but the problem of drinking water needed to be solved urgently. There are many ways to get drinking water in the forest, but for this strange world, strange forest, various strange creatures and plants, Xia Changqing, although physically strong, did not dare to drink the water here casually. Unless it is running water, who knows what special substances are contained in it. He needs to find a place with people and replenish supplies. Looking at his equipment and thinking about the particularity of this world, Xia Changqing thought he could act as a demon hunter, accept some commissions, and get some money. Having made up his mind, Xia Changqing moved forward to the south unswervingly. After walking for another half a day, Xia Changqing finally found traces of human activities. A path that was obviously trampled by humans appeared in front of him. Following the path, Xia Changqing finally walked out of the forest. After about half an hour, not far from the forest, there was a small village surrounded by a barbed fence. Wooden houses were scattered among them, and pedestrians could be seen coming and going. The strange visitor did not attract much attention. The scale of this village was not small. It could be seen that there were often merchants and adventurers coming and going. The villagers were no longer surprised by this, and Xia Changqing was very glad about it. A village of this size must have a tavern, which would allow him to replenish his supplies. Xia Changqing walked towards the center of the village. Taverns were usually built there, integrating accommodation, dining, and entertainment. They were the most important buildings in this medieval-style society. Sure enough, a moment later, Xia Changqing found a building with the word tavern written on it in the center. It was a very rare two-story building that could be noticed at a glance. Xia Changqing pushed the door open and entered. A strong smell of wine mixed with other smells came to his face, making Xia Changqing frown. The slightly dim room had several tables placed in a mess. It was not yet business time, and there were only some drunks sleeping on the tables in the tavern. Xia Changqing walked to the front of the bar, where a middle-aged man with a full beard was looking down, seemingly counting the bills. Sensing the sound of footsteps, the tavern owner looked up and asked casually, "What would you like? What's there to drink?" Xia Changqing sat down and leaned Lindang against the bar. "Special honey wine. Would you like a glass? Try it." Hearing Xia Changqing's answer, the tavern owner pushed over a large wine glass made of pine wood, then turned around and took the bottle from the wine cabinet and filled the wooden glass with light yellow wine. A sweet smell came to his face. Xia Changqing looked at the slightly turbid honey wine and took a sip. It tasted sweet with a hint of alcohol, and the alcohol content was not much different from beer. It looked okay. Xia Changqing thought to himself, then raised his glass and drank a large glass in one breath. Xia Changqing let out a comfortable breath and smashed the wooden cup on the table. Another cup. Xia Changqing did not gulp down the second cup, but took small sips slowly. He put his hands on the table and tapped it casually. "Hey, is there anything I can do for you?" The tavern owner can be said to be the most well-informed person in the whole village. The villagers will entrust any unsolvable problems to the tavern owner. The tavern is a place where good and bad people mix together. After the mercenaries who are short of money accept the task, the tavern owner will take a commission from it. "Mercenary, how strong are you?" The tavern owner is not surprised. He has seen a lot of such things. "No, you are wrong." Xia Changqing put down the wine glass and corrected the mistake in the tavern owner's words. "I'm not an ordinary mercenary. I'm a demon hunter." "Demon hunter?" The tavern owner immediately became interested. "Are you the apprentice of the demon hunter mentor Gregory?" "No, I came from another place." "Who is the demon hunter mentor Gregory you mentioned?" "You don't even know Gregory?" The tavern owner was surprised. "It seems that you are really not from our local." "Gregory is a demon hunter mentor, the greatest demon hunter. The Dark Queen Malkin was defeated by him." "It sounds good. If there is a chance, I would like to meet this demon hunter mentor." Xia Changqing looked thoughtful. It can be seen that Gregory has a great reputation in this place. Sooner or later, he will find Gregory. It's not for anything else. As an ordinary person, even if Gregory is a demon hunter mentor, Xia Changqing is not very interested. What he is really interested in is the Dark Queen Malkin, a witch king. Since there is magic in this world, there is no reason why Xia Changqing cannot obtain magic. "Okay, Mr. Demon Hunter, how strong are you? I will consider which tasks I can entrust to you." After hearing that Xia Changqing had no relationship with Gregory, the tavern owner's enthusiasm was greatly reduced. In the minds of the locals, Gregory is the most powerful demon hunter, and this idea has been deeply rooted. A newcomer like Xia Changqing will not be recognized by anyone before he makes a name for himself. "Believe me, my sword is not for display. If you can't introduce a high-paying task to me, I don't have the money to pay for your wine." Xia Changqing laughed, and his rogue statement directly made the tavern owner's face look ugly. "Demon hunter, what do you mean?" "The meaning is very simple. That is, I don't have the money to pay for your wine now." "Damn, demon hunter, give me back the wine." The tavern owner's face was extremely ugly, and he snatched the wine glass from Xia Changqing's hand. Xia Changqing smacked his lips and didn't care. "Okay, boss, don't be angry. When I make money, I promise to give you the full amount." Xia Changqing looked at the innkeeper, who looked distrustful, thought for a while, and pulled out the dagger from his waist. "How about this? I'll leave this dagger with you. It's made of pure silver, so you can rest assured." "Right." The innkeeper took the dagger, weighed it with his hand, picked it up, and looked at it. After confirming that it was made of silver, he immediately smiled and returned the wine glass to Xia Changqing. "I believe you are a powerful demon hunter. Let me think about what mission is suitable for you." Chapter 103 Wild Boar Killer. Without thinking for too long, the tavern owner said hesitantly, "There is a problem in the village that has been bothering us, but I don't know if you can solve it." Xia Changqing put down his wine glass, wiped the wine foam on his mouth, and said nonchalantly, "Just tell me, I can solve most of the problems in this world." The tavern owner curled his lips at Xia Changqing's self-boasting, as if to say, "I'll just watch you show off. Demon Hunter, don't be too arrogant. This matter is a headache for our entire village. If you can help us solve it, you will definitely get a reward." Most of the villagers rely on the land they have reclaimed outside the village for their livelihood, but before the new year, a group of wild boars suddenly ran out of the forest. Those damn beasts destroyed the crops planted by the villagers, leaving them with nothing. Puff. Xia Changqing laughed when he heard it and looked at the tavern owner with amusement. "Are you kidding me? You can't deal with a group of wild boars? Those are not ordinary wild boars." The tavern owner seemed to be insulted, and his eyes were full of anger when he looked at Xia Changqing. "They are a group of mutated monsters, and the village once paid powerful mercenaries to deal with them. But the iron swords couldn't pierce their skin, but the mercenaries had their bellies pierced by the wild boar's fangs. The villagers suffered greatly, but fortunately those beasts didn't run out of the forest very often, otherwise we would have to consider leaving this place. Well, those wild boars are really a bunch of hateful wild boars. Since you all suspect that these wild boars have become monsters, why didn't you think of asking Gregory to deal with them? I think you are kidding me." Although the tavern owner didn't say anything, judging from his expression, he definitely wanted to express this. As the greatest demon hunter, how could Gregory look down on such a small commission? He should deal with tough guys like the Shapeshifters. The tavern owner said, as if it was a matter of course. "You loser. Gregory looked down on such a small commission, but you looked like I can't complete it. What do you mean?" Xia Changqing resisted the urge to speak foul language with his strong willpower. He waved his hand in a bored manner. "Okay, don't say more. I'll take this commission. Where are those wild boars? Someone has to lead the way for me." However, what Xia Changqing never expected was that it was so difficult to find a guide in the whole village. Fortunately, there must be brave men under a big reward. A senior hunter in the village took on the task of leading the way. The reward was 1 silver coin. According to him, this was earned with his life. In the afternoon, after the hunter was ready, the two embarked on a journey to the forest to hunt wild boars. The hunter was very familiar with the road to the wild boar's lair. According to him, he led the team that hired mercenaries to eradicate wild boars last time. It was a pity that the mercenary was a silver-plated spearhead. In just 2 rounds, he was pierced by the wild boar and his internal organs were all over the ground. Fortunately, he ran fast enough to escape with his life. This is why no one is willing to lead the team again. In the jungle, it is impossible for humans to run faster than crazy beasts. The hunter seemed to be very familiar with this jungle. He took Xia Changqing and found the wild boar's lair with ease. Xia Changqing stood on a tree branch in the distance, looking at the huge monster lying under the tree, and wanted to curse in his heart. This fucking can also be called a wild boar. It's a land tank. The giant wild boar, twice as big as Xia Changqing had imagined, could really be called a monster. Its bristles were like steel needles all over its body. Its pair of fangs were like 2 sharp swords that gleamed with cold light and could easily pierce human flesh and blood. Monster Hunter, can you handle it? Don't be stubborn. We still have a chance to escape before we completely provoke it. Xia Changqing glanced at the hunter who had a deep hatred for the wild boar. The wild boar looked scary, but it couldn't withstand the sharpness of his steel sword. "Stand here and don't move. I'll go buy some oranges." "Hunter, what are you talking about?" "Nothing. I just asked you to wait here." Xia Changqing's voice had faded away. He jumped down from the tree branch and came to the wild boar in a few steps. After thinking for a while, Xia Changqing picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at the wild boar's head from a distance. The wild boar spirit, who was dreaming, was awakened by the sudden attack. It hummed in its mouth and saw the culprit in the distance at a glance. When enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. Moreover, Xia Changqing has invaded its territory. It lowered its head, aimed its 2 erect fangs at Xia Changqing from a distance, and slapped the ground with its front hooves twice. The wild boar spirit rushed towards Xia Changqing like a tank, carrying an earth-shaking momentum. "It's over." The hunter who was watching this scene from a distance shouted in his heart that it was over. The level of this demon hunter was really too poor. He didn't take advantage of the wild boar's sleep to sneak attack, but took the initiative to wake up the other party. It was really stupid. This demon hunter is dead. If all demon hunters are like this, then he can also become a demon hunter. Just when the hunter couldn't bear to see the scene of Xia Changqing being disemboweled, Xia Changqing moved his wrist with a little excitement and stood in a horse stance. That's right, Xia Changqing was going to compete head-on with the wild boar in strength. Since he used the blood ancestor's white blood, he hadn't had time to test his current strength. Xia Changqing had just prepared himself when the wild boar ran in front of him with its head down. Ha! Xia Changqing chuckled lightly, leaned forward, and quickly grabbed the wild boar's protruding fangs. The huge force coming from his arm, Xia Changqing's face flushed instantly. He could even hear the creaking sound from the bones of his arm, and two shallow grooves were plowed under his feet. Xia Changqing's whole body was pushed back by the wild boar, and he smiled bitterly in his heart. He overestimated his strength and underestimated the impact of the wild boar's huge body. It's impossible to resist. Xia Changqing cursed in his heart. He was really looking for trouble. Why did he want to compete with a beast in strength? As if it had a life, a shadow stretched out from under Xia Changqing's feet and quickly wrapped around the wild boar's front hoof. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xia Changqing leaped to the side and rolled on the ground twice before he was able to relieve the impact. The wild boar continued to charge, even breaking free from the shadow and crashing into a tree without slowing down. Chapter 104, Spread of Reputation, Seeking First Order. Bang! A violent crash that made people feel headache shocked Xia Changqing and the hunter. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts that this wild boar that was about to become a spirit was really an iron-headed kid. The trees in this forest were all as thick as a person's embrace. Even with the powerful body of this wild boar, it would be uncomfortable for it to hit such a tree. On the other side, Xia Changqing was not idle. He took advantage of its illness to kill it. If he didn't take action now, when would he do it? Holding the long sword upside down, Xia Changqing charged a few steps, then jumped lightly and sat directly on the wild boar. Holding the sword with both hands, he stabbed the wild boar's neck without hesitation. The wild boar's thick skin that was difficult for arrows to penetrate was as easy as cutting tofu under the sharpness of winter. Xia Changqing inserted the entire sword body and directly penetrated the wild boar's neck, which made the wild boar's whole body tremble, as if struck by lightning. At the same time, it let out a shocking scream from its mouth. Oh my god. The hunter in the distance was frightened by the sudden roar and fell directly from the tree. He got up from the ground in a panic and looked towards Xia Changqing. The huge wild boar had already fallen to the ground, and the young man who claimed to be a demon hunter was wiping his sword. The hunter's face showed an irrepressible joy, and he immediately trotted over. Demon hunter, well done. Haha, this beast is finally dead. Xia Changqing calmly took back the winter. In fact, the wild boar looked scary, but it was just like that. After all, it did not escape the range of the beast. However, for the village, where the hunter was, the wild boar was indeed a difficult existence for them to deal with. Afterwards, the hunter followed Xia Changqing back to the village excitedly. The body of the wild boar was too large, and it was impossible to bring it back to the village with only 2 people. In the village, everyone was looking forward to it. The wild boar had become a big trouble for their village. After the mercenary died, the people in the village were once desperate. Now a young man who claims to be a demon hunter has come. Although everyone does not hold out much hope, they still have a fluke mentality in their hearts. What if the demon hunter is not bragging, but is really capable? Look, they are back. From a distance, a sharp-eyed child spotted the figures of the two. Oh, did they fail again? I said that the demon hunter is unreliable. Apart from Gregory, there is no powerful demon hunter. I was right, right? It has only been a short time. They must have seen that beast and fled back in shame. The aunt in linen shirt spoke as an old prophet. She had a smug expression on her face, which was exactly what I expected. Most people in the village sighed. Although the aunt's words were unpleasant to hear, they were the truth. The time between Xia Changqing and the others leaving and their return was indeed too short. No wonder they were so suspicious. In the hearts of these villagers, they all thought that Xia Changqing had to fight the wild boar for at least an hour and a half, which was reasonable. When Xia Changqing and the hunter approached, they saw that all the villagers had a depressed expression, as if their parents had died. Everyone is here. the hunter said with a smile. It saves me from notifying you one by one. Come on, let's go and bring back the body of the wild boar. What? Eugene, are you kidding? Facing the villagers' doubts, the hunter showed an unhappy look on his face, as if the wild boar was killed by him, and he would not tolerate any doubts from others. Of course I'm not kidding. The wild boar has been killed by the Witcher, and the body is there. You can tell at a glance. Oh my god. Was the beast really killed? The villagers were quiet for a moment, and then they shouted excitedly. Of course, they did not forget to send all the young people in the village to bring back the body of the wild boar. For the villagers who had difficulty getting some meat, such a big wild boar would give each family a large piece. I told you that the demon hunter can do it. The auntie shouted happily. She looked at Xia Changqing with an extremely kind look, as if she was looking at her own son-in-law. The villagers around her all looked at the auntie in silence. Just now, she was the one who had the most doubts about the demon hunter. Xia Changqing did not stay for long. His mission had been completed. As for the wild boar's body, it was useless for him to have it. And judging from the attitude of the villagers, they did not think that it was his trophy. Xia Changqing did not have too many requirements, as long as the villagers could give him the reward as promised. Of course, if these villagers wanted to be a troublemaker and refuse his reward, Xia Changqing would let them know that his sword was not only used to kill wild beasts. So he let the villagers happily carry the wild boar's body, and Xia Changqing returned to the tavern in the center of the village. Demon hunter, are you afraid and running back? Then your short sword will be mine. The tavern owner looked at Xia Changqing, who pushed the door and walked in, squinting his eyes to observe him, and found that there was no trace of fighting on his body, and suddenly he became more worried. Xia Changqing lazily put down Winter and sat at the bar. It's just a beast without wisdom, so it's easy to catch. Hurry up and give me something to eat. Are you sure you are not bragging? The tavern owner looked at Xia Changqing with suspicion, without any movement of his hands. Nonsense. Wait until they bring back the body of the wild boar, and you will know with your own eyes. Hurry up and bring the food over. If you don't believe it, can't what I have be worth a little food from you? Looking at the impatient Xia Changqing, the tavern owner looked at his equipment again. Under the black cloak, there was armor reflecting silver light. He suspected that it was a silver armor. In fact, the dagger that Xia Changqing mortgaged to the tavern owner was worth much more than some drinks and food. But when doing business, the tavern owner always wanted to make more money. After a while, the tavern owner asked the waiter to bring Xia Changqing grilled pork chops, wheat cakes and other food. After Xia Changqing had eaten and drunk his fill, the villagers finally brought back the body of the wild boar. The huge body of the wild boar was placed in the village, which immediately made the whole village excited. Especially after the wild boar meat was distributed to every household, the village was as lively as a festival. After all, the money for hiring someone to get rid of the wild boar was shared by all the villagers, so naturally they had to share the meat equally. Within half a day, Xia Changqing's name as a demon hunter was already known to everyone. Of course, it was limited to this village. Looking for Gregory? Here is your reward. The tavern owner threw a small bag of copper coins in front of Xia Changqing. Although the villagers had some small thoughts, they did not make any mistakes on this matter. Perhaps it was because Xia Changqing killed the wild boar cleanly and neatly that the villagers saw his martial arts and were afraid of him. Moreover, although the reward was high, after it was distributed to each household, there was not much left. Even the unruly people would not offend a powerful demon hunter for such a small profit. Xia Changqing put down the wine glass, grabbed the purse, and poured out the copper coins in it upside down. With the sound of jingling, more than a dozen copper coins with patterns on them scattered on the table. See how much you need for the wine, take it yourself. Xia Changqing waved his hand and said to the tavern owner in a generous manner. In fact, Xia Changqing just didn't know how the prices in this world were calculated and how much the things he ate and drank were worth, so he asked the tavern owner to take them himself. Unexpectedly, the tavern owner said directly, "My share has been deducted in advance. Of course, if you still want to continue to enjoy the service, you will need more money. HMM. Xia Changqing raised his eyebrows and looked at the tavern owner unkindly. Taking without permission is stealing. It was just a small amount of money, and Xia Changqing was unwilling to argue with the other party. In that case, why don't you return my dagger to me? What Xia Changqing said was naturally the silver dagger that he had mortgaged to the tavern owner before accepting the commission. The tavern owner took out the dagger from under the bar and returned it to Xia Changqing reluctantly. This silver dagger is much more valuable than a few copper coins. It's a pity that the opponent's force is not something he can contend with. Moreover, being able to open a tavern here, reputation is important, and the tavern owner can still distinguish between the important and the unimportant. Xia Changqing reached out to grab his dagger and put it back on his waist. Master Demon Hunter, do you want anything else? I have a lot of special delicacies here, or do you want to accept some more commissions? After returning the dagger, the tavern owner's eyes flashed with reluctance, and then a slightly flattering smile appeared on his face. After seeing Xia Changqing's value, he certainly didn't mind being more respectful. Xia Changqing didn't care about the tavern owner's attitude of being arrogant at first and then respectful. Small people naturally have their own way of survival, but he didn't plan to spend too much energy here. It was just a remote little village, not worth his stay. So, Xia Changqing turned around and shook the purse full of copper coins in his hand. Can anyone tell me where the demon hunter mentor Gregory is now? The merchants and mercenaries in the tavern, whether they were drinking or chatting, all looked in the direction of Xia Changqing. The wild boar killed by Xia Changqing was still in the center of the village at this time, and these people already knew his name. Besides, the merchants may not be interested in the copper coins in Xia Changqing's hand, but the mercenaries who are at home all over the world don't think so. In any case, this small bag of copper coins is enough for them to live a life of drunkenness and dreaming for several days. Besides, this task is not a task that requires desperate efforts. I know, I met Master Gregory a few days ago. Master Demon Hunter, I know. For a while, responses came from all directions, and the mercenaries all wanted to grab this simple task. Generally speaking, this place is not a very large country, and there is only one human main city nearby, and Gregory has always been active around that city. Therefore, for Gregory, who is famous, mercenaries of all sizes know him, and it is not difficult to find Gregory's whereabouts. Looking at the mercenaries who signed up enthusiastically, Xia Changqing showed a satisfied smile, and he casually pointed at the mercenary who spoke first. It's you. Xia Changqing threw the bag of money at the other party. Take me to find Gregory, and the money will be yours. No problem, sir. It's my honor to serve you. My name is... Xia Changqing waved his hand. I'm not interested in knowing your name. Just remember that your mission is to take me to find Gregory. Yes, sir. The old mercenary didn't look angry at all. He smiled and was happy that he could grab this commission. Then sir, when are we going to leave? Have you rested? Sir, I'm ready and can leave at any time. Very good, let's go now. Xia Changqing picked up his long sword leaning against the bar and signaled the mercenary to lead the way. The mercenary immediately ran to Xia Changqing's side and diligently opened the door of the tavern for him. Xia Changqing ignored the tavern owner's earnest request to stay and left the tavern in a chic manner, letting the mercenary lead the way to where Gregory was. But what made Xia Changqing very unhappy was that they actually had to walk there, and the road was so difficult to walk. That's right, there was no horse in the whole village for Xia Changqing to buy. There were still many things in this world that could not be bought with money. Complaining was useless, so Xia Changqing had to set off. Fortunately, according to the mercenary, the town where he saw Gregory 2 days ago was not far from here. Moreover, the demon hunter mentor Gregory was usually like the mercenary. He would get drunk in the tavern when he had money. He would not leave that place until he had no money or the bells of the cathedral rang. If they were fast enough, they would definitely find Gregory in that town. Half a day later, when it was completely dark, Xia Changqing and the mercenary who led the way finally arrived at the town that the other party mentioned. The reason why this place is called a small town is that its size is completely bigger than the small village where Xia Changqing had stayed before. The two people went straight to the tavern as usual. The tavern at this time is the busiest time of the day. Every tavern is full of people. Yes, there is not only one tavern in this town, but 3. After finding nothing in the first tavern, the mercenary began to get a little nervous. He had indeed seen Gregory in that tavern 2 days ago. He just didn't know why he was gone now. After asking around, the mercenary took Xia Changqing to the second tavern. This was the news he had just heard. Gregory had moved his battlefield. The mercenary could only pray in his heart, hoping that the gods would bless Gregory, and that he would be in the remaining 2 taverns. Chapter 106. A contest between men. Click. As the mercenary pushed open the wooden door of the tavern, a noisy sound suddenly came. Xia Changqing had already gotten used to this atmosphere. He looked around past the mercenary. The drinkers were gathered together, as if they were holding some kind of event. No one paid attention to Xia Changqing and the other person who had just entered. The mercenary stood on tiptoe and looked into the crowd. Soon, a look of surprise appeared on his face. It's Gregory, the demon hunter mentor Gregory. Oh. Xia Changqing calmly followed the mercenary's gaze and looked into the crowd. Surrounded by layers of people, 2 people were competing in arm wrestling. The most eye-catching person was an elderly man. His hair and beard were all white, and his face was covered with wrinkles, but his arms resting on the table were covered with bulging muscles. Gregory was the one who was still strong despite his age. Master Demon Hunter, that's Gregory. Look, I've already led you to him. Before the mercenary finished speaking, Xia Changqing waved his hand, signaling him to leave on his own, while he stared at Gregory intently. The mercenary left tactfully, and a new round of competition was about to begin in the center of the venue surrounded by the crowd. And it seemed that Gregory had already won many games. Come on, Angel, beat Gregory. I've invested a lot of money on you. That's right, Gregory is no longer good. Beat him. You idiots. The demon hunter mentor Gregory is invincible. I bet he can still win this round. Gregory is old, and his bravery is gone. There was constant discussion around, and before the game started, the drinkers placed bets on the objects they favored. After hearing someone say that he was no longer good, the wrinkles on Gregory's face squeezed together, and he spat fiercely. You ignorant brat, when I became famous, you were still in your mother's belly. You dare to say that I can't do it? Do you dare to let your mother try? Gregory's vulgar words immediately made the air around them more cheerful, and the person who just spoke also blushed. Xia Changqing shook his head and laughed. Before he met Gregory, he always thought that the other party should be a respected person. It seems that reality and ideal are indeed far apart. Boy, can we start? Gregory slapped the table and urged loudly. The strong man opposite the demon hunter mentor had sweat on his forehead. He was under a lot of pressure now. It was natural to be nervous in front of the famous Gregory. Okay, I'm ready. The 2 people held their hands tightly together, and both of them subconsciously straightened and tensed their bodies, as if all the strength in their bodies was transferred to their hands. As the referee in the middle gave the order to start, the strong man opposite Gregory took the lead. He suddenly burst out with all his strength, trying to knock Gregory down in one fell swoop. The strong man's arm was exposed to the neck, and veins bulged. In just a moment, his face turned red. However, the result of the battle was obvious. At the moment of his strength, Gregory's arm fell backwards uncontrollably. However, the strong man had not had time to be happy. The muscles on Gregory's arm bulged, and when he was about to lose, he stopped the decline. As Gregory's arm was raised little by little, the strong man's arm retreated little by little. Even though he gritted his teeth and veins bulged on his forehead, he still couldn't stop the situation from being moved back by Gregory. Bang! The strong man's arm slammed on the table, and Gregory was better in the end. The shouts for the strong man fell silent instantly, and on the contrary, those who bet on Gregory to win happily clinked glasses with each other, and they could make a lot of money again. Gregory stuffed his share, the most generous one, into his arms. Then he took a big gulp of wine, wiped his beard with his palm, and laughed. Is there anyone who wants to compete with me again? As soon as this was said, the whole audience was silent, and no one dared to challenge. Even though everyone knew that Gregory had fought 5 games in a row, no one could guarantee that he would win 5 games in 5 games. Gregory had already exhausted his strength at this time. The last strong man who had just lost thought that Gregory's physical strength had been greatly consumed, so he wanted to exploit this loophole, but he lost everything. No one dares to come? Then we'll stop here tonight. After Gregory confirmed it again, he was about to announce that the fight tonight was over. Anyway, he had already made a lot of money. But unexpectedly, at this moment, a young voice suddenly sounded from outside the crowd. "Let me try." The drinkers around looked towards the source of the voice. They wanted to see who was so foolish and bold that he dared to challenge Gregory. However, to their surprise, the person who spoke was actually a young man who looked a bit like a salesman. Xia Changqing ignored the contemptuous, suspicious, and curious eyes of the people around him, calmly separated the crowd, and sat in front of Gregory. "Young man, you can't do it. I don't have time to play with you. Let's stop here tonight." Looking at Xia Changqing, who had no hair on his mouth and looked unusually young, Gregory lost interest instantly. He didn't have time to play with a young man. And judging from the other party's appearance, he was just a young man who had just started out, and he couldn't take out a few gold coins. It was simply a waste of time. Xia Changqing's smile remained unchanged. He took off the winter hanging on his waist with his right hand and casually erected it on the ground. The long sword went straight into the ground and went in almost 1/3 of the entire sword body. Seeing Xia Changqing's move, the drinkers around were also silent. You know, the ground of the entire tavern has been stepped on by countless people, and it has long been very hard. If a sharp sword is inserted into the ground, many people present can do it. But Winter didn't draw his sword at all. Strictly speaking, Xia Changqing pressed the scabbard into the ground. Especially because he looked so nonchalant and didn't use any strength at all. It shocked the surrounding drinkers the most. Even Gregory was shocked by Xia Changqing's casual action, and he instantly became interested. "Young man, since you strongly want to compete with me, how can I not satisfy your wish? Now you can take out your chips. I have to tell you in advance that, if you don't have enough chips, I won't compete with you." Gregory's shameless words made Xia Changqing want to spit in his face. Chapter 107. Fellow Travelers. Xia Changqing patted the winter sword beside him, attracting Gregory's attention. Swish with a barely perceptible friction sound, the winter sword was unsheathed. Even in the dim light, the winter sword could not hide its sharpness. Gregory squinted his eyes unconsciously, as if he was afraid of being hurt by the cold and shining blade. Good sword. Gregory is also an old demon hunter, so his vision is naturally good. Having such a good sword is simply twice the result with half the effort for fighting. "Young man, do you want to bet with me with this sword? If you lose the bet later, don't regret it." Xia Changqing nodded affirmatively, with a calm smile on his face, and put the sword back into the sheath. "I'm willing to accept the loss." "Well, Kit, you will definitely become a big man in the future." Gregory praised generously, and he stretched out his arm and placed it on the table. "Come on, boy, let me teach you the first lesson." Xia Changqing stretched out his right hand slowly and shook Gregory's hand. It was indeed a very powerful palm. Gregory. None of the drinkers around were optimistic about Xia Changqing. They were all cheering for Gregory, and at the same time, they bet their money on Gregory. Even though Gregory's odds were 1-1, Xia Changqing's odds were 1-5. The most uncomfortable person was the owner of the tavern. There was no way. Who asked him to be the banker? If Gregory won, he would have to pay all the money. The tavern owner cursed Xia Changqing in his heart for overestimating his own ability and causing him to lose a lot of money. "I bet on that adult to win." At this moment, the tavern owner unexpectedly discovered that there was actually a big fool who wanted to bet on the young man to win. This was a rare good thing for him to stop the loss. The tavern owner quickly took the copper coin from the mercenary. The person who could beat Xia Changqing to win was naturally the mercenary who brought Xia Changqing here. Only he knew that Xia Changqing had hunted a wild boar like a monster in that village alone. Regardless of the outside world's discussions, Xia Changqing and Gregory were already prepared. As the referee who volunteered to stand up, a start sound fell, and Xia Changqing and Gregory exerted force at the same time. Xia Changqing could feel the power coming from Gregory's hand. The explosive power was trained by him through fighting for many years. To fight a witch with magic power with a mortal body, Gregory must have such physical fitness. However, Gregory's power is an insurmountable mountain for ordinary people, but for Xia Changqing, he is the insurmountable mountain for Gregory. As Xia Changqing exerted force, Gregory's eyes widened in vain. He looked at Xia Changqing in disbelief, because he was truly feeling the power like a violent beast. Bang! Xia Changqing pressed Gregory's arm down on the table, and in an instant, the voices in the entire tavern fell silent. Gregory, I was defeated. The wailing like a defeated dog immediately caused a series of chain reactions, and all the drinkers could not believe that what they saw was a real scene. In the wailing, there were also two big laughs with a smile on their faces, especially the tavern owner who made a lot of money. His face was directly smiling. He decided that the tavern would waive all the expenses of the warrior tonight. Gregory, I won. Xia Changqing stretched out his hand in front of the old demon hunter, shaking it, and the meaning was very clear. Gregory's face changed, and he took out the purse from his arms and threw it into Xia Changqing's hand. Just looking at his eyes, the old demon hunter was not willing to accept it. Xia Changqing chuckled in his heart. He knew that he had aroused Gregory's interest. It was useless to actively be a licking dog when dealing with such an old demon. Only by letting Gregory come to him and actively want to explore his secrets, Xia Changqing can more easily achieve his goal. Xia Changqing pulled out his winter and weighed the weight of the purse with one hand. It must be said that Gregory is still very rich. Boss, pick up all the special wines and dishes in your store for me. As Xia Changqing left the competition venue, Gregory immediately stood up. After the two of them gave up their seats, others immediately took up their places. As soon as Xia Changqing sat down at the bar, Gregory sat down immediately. Xia Changqing glanced at Gregory and smiled softly. Why, Demon Hunter Mentor, do you want to compete with me again? I'm not your opponent. Gregory said very frankly, and then he added, even when I was young, I would not be your opponent in terms of strength. Oh. Gregory looked at Xia Changqing's cold reaction and felt the feeling of being ignored for the first time. I'm curious, young man, who are you? Gregory turned sideways and looked at Xia Changqing head on, saying in a serious tone, Mr. Demon Hunter Mentor, who do you think I am? You. Gregory hesitated for a moment. He knew that his strength had almost reached the peak of human beings, and Xia Changqing, who could easily defeat him in strength, was simply inhuman. As far as he knew, the accomplices of the Dark Queen Malkin might have this kind of power, but Gregory knew all of her lackeys. Young man, don't keep me in suspense. I'm not very patient. Answer me, have you ever come into contact with some power that ordinary people can't come into contact with? Gregory stared at Xia Changqing impatiently. Just as he said, he was not a good-tempered person. Although the opponent's strength was great, fighting was not just about strength. Gregory thought that, if they really fought, this young man would definitely not be his opponent. Looking at Gregory, who seemed to have lost his patience, Xia Changqing chuckled helplessly. He was so old, but he didn't have the stability that an old man should have. Xia Changqing knew that it was enough to stop and not really provoke Gregory. He lifted the hem of his cloak, revealing the silver dagger inserted in his waist. Senior Gregory, it's nice to meet you. You can call me Xia. As you can see, I'm also a demon hunter. Demon hunter? Gregory looked at Xia Changqing in surprise, and then he suddenly laughed. Young man, you are so arrogant. Don't think that you can be a demon hunter just because you carry a sword. Chapter 108 Target. Why? Xia Changqing suddenly asked, interrupting Gregory's laughter. Why? Why can't I be a demon hunter? Young man, have you seen real demons? Hunting some wild beasts doesn't make you a demon hunter. Do you know why I'm called a demon hunter mentor? Gregory suddenly became patient because he found that, although this young man had a problem of bragging, it was undeniable that he was very good. If he was trained by him for a period of time, it would not be impossible for him to become a real demon hunter. Maybe it would not be a bad thing to find a companion for little William. William Bradley, Gregory's apprentice 5 years ago. He is indeed a little old, and he needs the help of his apprentice in many things. Xia Changqing made a gesture of listening attentively. Gregory was satisfied with this attitude. He stretched out his right hand and showed it to Xia Changqing. There was an eagle pattern imprinted on the base of Gregory's right hand. In the beginning, there were no demon hunters at all. There was only an organization called the Falcon Knights, which was dedicated to fighting against those demons that ordinary people could not defeat. And I'm the last knight of the Falcon Knights. The mark of the falcon represents the mark of the knight, which is an identity that Gregory is proud of all his life. As Gregory spoke, His eyes suddenly became clear, as if he was lost in the memories of the past. Once people get older, they always like to recall the past. Heh. Suddenly, a chuckle came from the side, awakening Gregory, who was lost in his memories. The demon hunter mentor looked at Xia Changqing with a bad look. "Boy, what are you laughing at?" Xia Changqing shook his head and laughed. "Sir, I'm not laughing at what you said just now, but at your short-sightedness." Before Gregory could get angry, Xia Changqing's questions came one after another. "Mr. Gregory, do you know how big this world is? Have you seen thousands of skeletons? Have you seen immortal blood-sucking monsters that live on human blood? Do you know the true face of this universe?" Xia Changqing's string of questions directly confused Gregory. Facts have proved that Gregory's vision is very short-sighted. His scope of activities has always been small. Even the Dark Queen Malkin, who is committed to ruling mankind, is just a ridiculous person who puts her nest in a mountain nest. "Don't you know all this?" Gregory, who was stunned for a long time, finally couldn't help asking. Xia Changqing nodded, then shook his head. "Some I have seen, and some I have not. But I will not casually deny that something I do not know is necessarily false, and I will not be arrogant." The demon hunter mentor's face turned red, and he was a little embarrassed. "Boy, everyone can talk, but since you say you are also a demon hunter, let's see for ourselves. Why should I prove it to you?" Suddenly, Xia Changqing asked again in confusion. Gregory was stunned again. This was the nth time that he was stunned by Xia Changqing's sudden question tonight. "Whether I'm a demon hunter or not, what does it have to do with you? Mr. Gregory, are you afraid that I will snatch your commission?" Xia Changqing looked at Gregory with a smile. The old demon hunter was a little embarrassed and annoyed. "Humph, you bragging brat. Go ask them. Who doesn't know my name, Gregory?" Xia Changqing turned his head away, concentrating on the wine and food, and no longer paying attention to Gregory, which directly made the old demon hunter angry. "Arrogant boy, you will pay the price for your arrogance." Gregory left the bar with a snort, far away from Xia Changqing, and went to drink alone. Xia Changqing didn't care about Gregory's departure. He knew that the stubborn old demon hunter would not give up so easily. Gregory would definitely verify whether he was a demon hunter before he would give up. There is a long way to go, and Xia Changqing doesn't care about this moment. If you want to get information about the location of the Dark Queen Malkin, you must not be impatient. Just like fishing, you can't always keep the fishing line taut, otherwise it will easily break the fishing line and let the fish that have been hooked go. And with Gregory's stubbornness and his special feelings for Malkin, even if Xia Changqing threatened him with force, Gregory would definitely swear to death not to tell. So this matter cannot be forced. If you stay around Gregory, you will find out sooner or later. Even if Malkin escapes from the underground cage, where she is imprisoned at the beginning of the plot, she will definitely come to Gregory for revenge. Putting down the wine glass in his hand, Xia Changqing recalled all these thoughts in his mind again. He felt that he didn't need to be so anxious, and could treat it as a leisurely vacation. Moreover, Xia Changqing was also very curious about the outside world. As he said, the things happening around Gregory and Malkin were too narrow. Xia Changqing firmly believed that there must be a wider world outside. Of course, the current thing is to learn from Malkin how to possess magic power, and the other part is ability to change form. Xia Changqing's most profound impression of Malkin was that she could transform into a dragon. Although the dragon she transformed into looked very weak, it also gave Xia Changqing hope that he could fly. Looking back to the present, Xia Changqing had eaten and drunk enough. He turned his head and saw that the mercenaries and travelers were still enjoying the one-on-one battles, and Gregory seemed to have drunk too much and fell asleep on the table. Xia Changqing shook his head, retracted his gaze, and placed a gold coin on the bar. "Prepare a room for me." The gold coin was naturally won from Gregory. The tavern owner happily touched the gold coin and called the servant. As for the matter of waiving the bill for Xia Changqing, the gold coin was above all else. If he didn't cherish a gold coin placed in front of him, he would definitely be heartbroken to death. For the sake of the gold coins, the tavern owner also asked Xia Changqing attentively, "Sir, do you need any special services? I can arrange it for you." Looking at the lewd smile on the corner of the tavern owner's mouth, Xia Changqing instantly understood what he meant by special services. However, Xia Changqing was not interested in these. It's not like he had never been in this medieval world, but he knew that people here didn't take a bath all year round. Thinking of those pungent body odors, no matter how beautiful the woman was, Xia Changqing instantly lost interest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109. Do you want to compete? The Valyrian steel sword was polished brightly, the blade flashed with cold light, and it could cut hair. Xia Changqing looked at the reflection on the sword, grinned, and put Winter back on his waist with satisfaction. Lifting his cloak, not only can you see the existence of the dagger, but also a pistol that Xia Changqing put on the gun bag on his waist. This is a treasure from the previous world. If there is a chance, Xia Changqing definitely doesn't mind saying to Gregory, "Sir, times have changed." After packing up, Xia Changqing walked out of the room. He had a good rest that night, and the sounds of humming and ahhing around him did not affect him too much. Go downstairs to eat. While chewing the food in his mouth, Xia Changqing saw Gregory occupying a good position. The demon hunter mentor was not alone. Next to him, a half-grown boy was whispering something to Gregory. Xia Changqing did not deliberately listen to what the old and the young were talking about. He dealt with the food in front of him slowly. However, what Xia Changqing did not expect was that Gregory would suddenly stand up and walk towards him, and the apprentice of the demon hunter mentor immediately followed. Looking at the old and the young approaching, Xia Changqing's eyes flashed with surprise. Jon Snow? As soon as this name appeared in his mind, Xia Changqing quickly shook his head secretly. How could this child be Jon Snow? This is not the continent of Westeros. However, Gregory's apprentice looks exactly like Jon Snow, so it's no wonder that Xia Changqing recognized the wrong person. In countless parallel time and space, it is not impossible for two identical leaves to appear. Master Gregory. Xia Changqing nodded and raised his hand to indicate the food in his hand. Would you like some? What Xia Changqing did not expect was that Gregory actually picked up a piece of bread from his plate very naturally and ate it heartily. Compared with Gregory, his apprentice was much more shy. The boy smiled at Xia Changqing somewhat embarrassedly, feeling ashamed of Gregory's behavior. Do it yourself, no need to be polite. After all, this was bought with Master Gregory's money. Xia Changqing chuckled and gestured to the shy boy. The other party smiled embarrassedly. William Bradley, you can call me William. I'm Master Gregory's apprentice. Hello, little William, you can call me Xia. Eat something casually and tell me, how long have you been studying with Master Gregory? Xia Changqing swallowed the last bite of food, pushed the whole plate to Gregory's side, turned sideways, and looked at the demon hunter apprentice with interest. Boy, what do you want to do by finding out so much? Gregory also turned sideways, blocking Xia Changqing's sight, staring at him unkindly. Xia Changqing laughed. He didn't have any bad intentions in his heart, but because William and John looked a little similar, he paid more attention to him. Master Gregory, you don't have to be so wary of me. I have no interest in your apprentice. It's just because he looks a bit like an old friend of mine. However, Xia Changqing's explanation did not relieve the doubt in Gregory's eyes. At this moment, a rapid bell suddenly rang. Xia Changqing noticed that the faces of Gregory and his apprentice suddenly changed. What happened? Xia Changqing's expression moved, and the bell seemed to have some special meaning. Teacher? Little William stood up from his seat and looked at Gregory. The old demon hunter nodded at him. William, you go get ready first. Xia Changqing looked at William, who ran out of the tavern, turned his head, and looked at Gregory. Why, do you have work to do? That's right, kid, didn't you say you are also a demon hunter? How about a competition, to see who will hunt the monster this time? After saying the last two words, an invisible iron-blooded aura emerged from Gregory's body, making those who noticed him unconsciously imagine the appearance of a ferocious beast in their hearts. However, Xia Changqing didn't seem to be affected. He stood up from his seat and straightened the long sword at his waist. I'd love to have you. The sonorous and powerful voice made Gregory feel recognized. At least this momentum belonged to the momentum of a demon hunter. Just after the two reached a consensus, little William pushed open the door of the tavern again and rushed in. "Teacher, it's the town of Fren. There was an attack by monsters." "Did they say what kind of monster it was?" Gregory asked as he walked out quickly. "No, it's just that the situation looks urgent." "Is the carriage ready?" "It's ready." "Then let's go." At this point, Gregory suddenly turned around and said, "Xia, do you want to go with us? Or go alone?" Xia Changqing looked around and didn't see any other horses except the two-horse carriage in front of Gregory. Shrugging his shoulders, Xia Changqing decided to accept reality. "Master Gregory, do you mind taking me with you?" "Then get in the car." Although Gregory seemed to be hesitant when drinking, he was decisive when it came to business. "Let's go, go." The reins of the double-row carriage were in Gregory's hand. He shouted and whipped the horse whip. Two good horses pulled the coffin-shaped carriage and galloped away. It seemed to have rained last night. The ground was full of mud, and the carriage was not running fast. Fortunately, the town of Fren mentioned by little William was not far from where they were. After passing through the dark forest, the group arrived at their destination in just 1 hour. From a distance, Xia Changqing saw some townspeople gathered together. They were whispering in fear, and there were children crying loudly. The sound of the carriage running startled these terrified townspeople. A middle-aged man with a deep hatred came forward. He was wearing a priest's robe. After seeing Gregory, he seemed to have seen a savior, and his sad face was relieved. "Master Gregory, here." "Whoa." Gregory stopped the carriage, jumped down from it, and asked without any hesitation, "Tell me, what happened?" "Master Gregory, please follow me. I will take you to see the monster with your own eyes. Please be informed. I can't use any words to describe what I saw." The priest's voice was trembling, and it was difficult to express the fear in his heart. Living in such a world, what was wrong with him? Why did he have to bear all this? Gregory obviously couldn't feel the emotional changes in the priest's heart. Chapter 110, Shapeshifter. Following the pastor's footsteps, Xia Changqing and the other two walked into the town under the expectant eyes of the villagers. It was not obvious when they were far away, but now that they walked in, Xia Changqing was surprised to find that the buildings in this town seemed to have been baptized by an earthquake. The houses collapsed, the ground cracked, revealing crisscrossing cracks, and a rumbling sound came from the depths of the darkness. "What's that sound?" Little William couldn't help asking. "Hush." Gregory glared at William sternly, signaling him to be quiet. When he got here, the pastor could no longer bear this depressing atmosphere and ran away all the way, and Gregory's face also showed a solemn expression. "Boys, I think we are in big trouble." "Teacher?" "William, I already know what is causing the trouble. Go back and get my sword." "Yes, teacher." After watching little William leave, Gregory immediately turned to look at Xia Changqing. "Boy, we will encounter a monster that is difficult to resist next. Don't be stubborn." Xia Changqing was really curious about what the monster that could make Gregory feel like he was facing a great enemy looked like. He drew the long sword from his waist. "Master Gregory, don't you want to see my strength? I hope that the monster you are talking about can make me show my true strength." Xia Changqing made a sword flower and said to Gregory confidently, "I hope your swordsmanship is as sharp as your mouth." Gregory took his sword from little William. It was an iron sword. If you want to deal with monsters that rely on physical strength, you can only rely on the power of iron and fire. "Little William, don't get close to the center of the battlefield. This is not a battle you can participate in." After giving a warning, Gregory held the sword and walked carefully towards the center of the town. As the three of them went deeper, the damage to the surrounding buildings became more and more serious, and some houses had completely collapsed. Finally, when they were close to the center of the town, Xia Changqing saw the culprit that caused all this. It was a huge beast as big as a mountain. It lay on the ground, just like a small mountain blocking the way of the three. What is this?" William asked at the right time. This was also what Xia Changqing wanted to ask. Shapeshifters are a kind of monster with low intelligence. They usually like to live underground, but they will also run to the ground. Every time a shapeshifter appears, it is a disaster for the ground. "Teacher, can we deal with this kind of monster?" William's voice was trembling. After all, facing such a behemoth It is hard for mortals to imagine how to win. Of course we can't deal with it. Gregory said as a matter of course. William, remember, if you encounter a shapeshifter in the future, run as fast as you can. Yes, teacher. Little William looked at Gregory in disbelief. This was actually said by his mentor. Little William already suspected that he was under too much mental pressure and was hallucinating. But mentor, since we can't deal with it, why are we here? Our mission is to lead this big guy away and prevent it from occupying the town. This is the best solution. Gregory was still explaining to his apprentice seriously, teaching him how to deal with the phantom monster. On the other side, Xia Changqing held up his sword and looked at the legendary phantom monster, but he didn't feel very scared. The phantom monster only looks scary in size, but it still has to be classified as a beast. It has low intelligence and can only rely on the power of its huge body to attack. It is easy and difficult to deal with it. Let's try the defense level of the phantom monster first. Xia Changqing thought so in his heart, and his actions were faster than his thoughts. He had already come to the side of the phantom monster. At this time, the phantom monster was still sleeping soundly. Its breathing was like the sound of the wind, making a rumbling sound. Its limbs were extremely thick. Overall, it looked like a puppy that was magnified many times. Xia Changqing held up his long sword, Winter, and stood beside the right leg of the shapeshifter. He made a gesture, then swung Winter, and cut off a large piece of meat from the shapeshifter's leg with one sword. Roar with endless anger suddenly sounded, awakening Gregory, who was immersed in teaching. He then noticed that Xia Changqing had left his side without knowing when. Because the shapeshifter's body was too large, Xia Changqing, who was standing beside its right leg, was not seen by Gregory. But as the furious shapeshifter rose up, a pair of angry eyes stared at Xia Changqing, and Gregory also found his trace. Boy, what did you do? Gregory only had time to shout, and the furious shapeshifter had already waved its front claws and grabbed Xia Changqing with the force of thunder. Good. Xia Changqing shouted softly. In the crisis, he was bold and careful, and dodged the shapeshifter's grab with a slight distance. The claw shadow passed in front of Xia Changqing's eyes, raising a gust of wind and making Xia Changqing's cloak rustle. But Xia Changqing's eyes were calm. He raised the Winter and slashed forward with a sword. Puff! A large amount of blood gushed out, quickly dyeing the ground red. Xia Changqing had already experimented just now, and the defense ability of the phantom monster could not stop his Winter. So after Xia Changqing dodged the phantom monster's grab, he immediately counterattacked and cut off one of the phantom monster's claws with a sword. The black claw fell to the ground, further intensifying the phantom monster's rage. The beast, which was already low in intelligence, was completely enraged by the pain in his body at this time, and there was no rule to attack. Originally, the phantom monster was scary because of its huge size and the power brought by this size. But in Xia Changqing's case, the phantom monster's huge size became a place to imprison it. Xia Changqing stepped lightly, as if dancing on the tip of a knife, and his figure elegantly rotated around the phantom monster. The phantom roared and attacked continuously, but it didn't even touch the corner of Xia Changqing's clothes. After Xia Changqing slowly figured out the attack mode of the phantom, he turned around and completely disappeared from the phantom's sight. In fact, Xia Changqing just entered the blind spot of the phantom's vision and moved with the phantom's actions, successfully avoiding being discovered by it. The Winter slashes. Each sword can take a piece of meat from the phantom's body. The phantom can only feel the pain coming from its body, but can't find out what caused all this. The phantom, unable to find the source, started an indiscriminate attack, and the houses in the town that were already crumbling were completely in trouble. Chapter 111 Monster Encyclopedia. Boom. The sound of the house collapsing was mixed with the repeated roars of the shapeshifter. Xia Changqing had no intention of stopping until the shapeshifter fell completely. On the other side, Gregory, who was almost knocked to the ground by the movement under his feet, was shocked. He quickly pulled his apprentice back a few steps. This. The old demon hunter pointed at the scene in the distance with his finger, and his words were not clear. The shock caused by this scene to him was too great. That arrogant kid actually has such strength? For a moment, Gregory felt bitter. Did his previous actions look like a joke in the eyes of the other party? It's a pity that he was so wise all his life, but when he got old, he actually made a mistake. The center of the battle. Xia Changqing dodged the rocks flying in front of him from time to time, while stepping on the steps with a specific frequency, strolling in the garden, following the movement of the shapeshifter's body. Under the sword of winter, the body of the phantom monster was already covered with blood, especially the wound on its legs, where the wound was particularly hideous and deep enough to see the bone. To be honest, Xia Changqing admired this monster in his heart. Even with such serious injuries, it was still able to move. But that was the end. In the battle just now, Xia Changqing had already covered the surrounding ground with layers of shadow power. At this time, the shadow power exploded and turned into a long shadow rope that was stronger than steel bars and iron chains. It followed the body of the phantom monster and twisted it like a python. The whole body of the phantom monster was tightened by the long rope made of shadow power. It was already seriously injured and could no longer support itself. The bones in the phantom monster's legs had already shown a tendency to break. Now that it was twisted by the shadow power, there was a crisp sound of crack, and the bones in its calves were directly broken. Roar. The phantom monster cried out in pain, and its whole body collapsed involuntarily. The mountain collapsed. Xia Changqing noticed a shadow covering his head, cursed inwardly, and ran out quickly. The phantom monster actually felt where he was. Could it be that it couldn't defeat it head on, so it dragged him along before dying? Fortunately, Xia Changqing ran fast enough. He had just run to a safe place the second before, and the next second, the phantom monster had already fallen to the ground. A large cloud of smoke and dust rushed in his face. Pa. Pa. Xia Changqing spit a few times, turned around, and met the phantom monster's eyes head on. After suffering so much damage, the phantom monster finally saw the culprit who caused all this, and it was unknown whether it was happy or sad. Xia Changqing looked at the phantom monster who was blinking his eyes, and he actually felt sympathy in his heart. If the phantom monster's body was not so huge, it would be a bit cute. It's a pity that its body is too huge. Master Gregory, why are you so far away? So, is this the shapeshifter? I have a question. Why is it called this name? Xia Changqing patted the shapeshifter's raised nose and asked Gregory who was approaching. Well, I'm not sure about this either. This is the name that has been passed down. Who knows why? Gregory said with a casual look on his face, but in fact, the shock in his eyes still existed. This is a shapeshifter. Although Gregory had defeated the Dark Queen Malkin before, he thought he would not get any advantage against the shapeshifter. He didn't expect that this young man, who he thought was just bragging, could easily solve it. This gap really made Gregory feel mixed emotions. This world is so interesting, but I don't know what other monsters look like. Xia Changqing showed a very yearning expression on his face, which made Gregory's face very complicated. Teacher, don't you have monster illustration book? Can you lend it to him to have a look? After hearing Xia Changqing's sigh, little William beside the two of them immediately shouted, Monster Atlas? Xia Changqing also became interested instantly, and he turned his eyes to Gregory. 2 hours later, in a clearing in a dense forest, little William was grilling meat by the fire, and Xia Changqing was holding the Monster Atlas that Gregory had just handed to him. After dealing with the phantom monster, the three of them left the town. They had already received the rewards they deserved, and as for how to deal with the phantom monster, that was not the responsibility of the demon hunter. Moreover, the townspeople might not be willing to let the three deal with the phantom monster's body. Although the meat of the phantom monster was not delicious, it was still meat after all. However, Xia Changqing's mind was not on the piece of phantom monster meat that was being grilled in William's hand. The monster atlas that he got from Gregory looked a bit old, and the yellowed paper seemed to be silently telling the glorious past of the Falcon Knights. Xia Changqing opened the monster atlas, and suddenly all kinds of strange and bizarre monster introductions appeared in front of him. Evil spirits, elemental creatures, banshees, demon spirits, countless monsters are vividly displayed on the paper. Xia Changqing exclaimed that it was interesting, and his hands kept moving. His motive for wanting to look at this monster illustration book was certainly not so simple. Although he also wanted to understand some of the characteristics of various monsters, that was not the most important thing. After 10 minutes or so, Xia Changqing's hand movement suddenly stopped. At this time, the monster illustration book was almost finished, and Xia Changqing successfully found what he was looking for. The information recorded on the page where Xia Changqing's eyes stopped was exactly about the Dark Queen Malkin. The black and white picture vividly painted a dragon with a majestic face, scales, wings on its back, and sharp claws. The Dark Queen Malkin, a witch, has the ability to transform into a dragon, which is difficult to be injured by swords, and is invulnerable to water and fire. The restraint method is to use silver powder and silver net to suppress the operation of magic power and cancel its transformation form. The Dark Queen in human form is not that scary. Dark Queen Malkin. Xia Changqing rubbed the paper with his hands and said in a thoughtful tone, I seem to have heard of this name, but I always thought it was just a legend. Master Gregory, does Dark Queen Malkin really exist? Gregory, who was originally drinking, fell into silence after hearing this name. Dark Queen Malkin, this is a name he will never forget in his life. What's wrong, Master Gregory? Is there anything you can't say? Xia Changqing didn't seem to notice Gregory's silence, but continued to ask without any eyesight. Chapter 112 Persuasion. There's nothing I can't say. Gregory took a big sip of wine and said in a hoarse voice, Master Gregory, can you tell me about this Dark Queen Malkin? There's nothing to say about Malkin, she's already dead, Gregory said very confidently. After that, he turned his head and shouted at little William, William, the meat hasn't been roasted yet? Do you want to starve your teacher to death? Teacher, don't worry, it will be ready soon. The meat of the Shapa shifter is really too difficult to roast. Little William was also helpless because his status was the lowest. Looking at Gregory, who didn't want to say more, Xia Changqing certainly couldn't give up so easily. Malkin is dead. How did she die? Master Gregory, did you kill her yourself? Shut up, kid. Why do you have so many questions? I've said it. Malkin is dead. Completely dead. Facing the roaring Gregory, Xia Changqing was unmoved. He now had the awareness of swallowing his pride. Master Gregory, I just want to know how such a powerful Malkin was killed. Please satisfy my curiosity. Okay, I'll tell you. Gregory, who was annoyed, stared at Xia Changqing. I personally locked Malkin in a dark dungeon, let her experience wind and rain, and let her die miserably in hunger and fear. Xia Changqing frowned and looked at Gregory questioningly. In other words, Master Gregory, you did not kill Malkin personally, but calculated it, based on your own conjecture. Conjecture? Boy, how can this be called conjecture? Malkin is definitely dead. Gregory, who was questioned, was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Have you seen it with your own eyes? Xia Changqing chuckled. Master Gregory, I wonder if you have ever heard of the saying, seeing is believing, hearing is not. In the case of Malkin, let alone seeing it with your own eyes, you haven't even heard it, so how can you be sure that she is dead? Gregory opened his mouth silently, and he suddenly found that he had no way to refute Xia Changqing's words. And little William on the side actually nodded in agreement, which added fuel to the fire. Gregory looked at Xia Changqing with an uncertain expression. The fact that Malkin is not dead is just your speculation. How do you judge that she is not dead? Xia Changqing sighed. At this point, Gregory was already a little unreasonable. Master Gregory, I saw from the monster atlas what the Dark Queen Malkin represents. A big part of the reason for the silence in the dark world today is because of Malkin's disappearance. For world peace and the stable life of mankind, we demon hunters must uphold firm beliefs and a pragmatic attitude. Malkin may be dead, but she may not be dead yet. After all, she is not a mortal. Of course, if Malkin is completely dead, everyone is happy, and this is something we should all celebrate. But now you are not sure whether she is dead or alive, so I have to consider the worst case scenario. Master Gregory, tell me where you are holding Malkin. I want to verify it with my own eyes. Xia Changqing's words directly stunned Gregory. With such a righteous reason, it seemed that if Gregory did not tell the location of Malkin, he would be the sinner of all mankind. Master Gregory, I sincerely beg you. The matter of Malkin's life and death is of great importance. If the dark forces really come back, I don't know how many people will be harmed. Gregory's expression was extremely tangled, but Xia Changqing had already put on a posture of not giving up until he achieved his goal, and Xia Changqing still stood on the moral high ground. As Xia Changqing expected, Gregory still gave in. You are right, Xia. Malkin is too important. I jumped to conclusions without seeing her die with my own eyes. This is my fault. But now I still have a chance to make up for it. Tomorrow morning, we will set off to the mountain where Malkin is. Xia Changqing secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After talking for so long, he finally persuaded Gregory to go find Malkin. His goal has been achieved halfway. The remaining half depends on whether the system will give it to him. Can he learn the method of using magic from Malkin? Gregory's face also relaxed. For so many years, Malkin had become a knot in his heart. It would be good to go and see it now. Seeing it with his own eyes would also make him feel at ease. Xia, you will definitely become a greater demon hunter than me in the future, Gregory said to Xia Changqing seriously. Just based on Xia Changqing's words, he must have more righteousness in his heart than himself. Thinking of this, Gregory showed a relieved smile on his face. The demon hunters have successors, and those monsters will never be able to turn over. Xia Changqing avoided Gregory's gaze. In fact, his motives were not so simple, but he would not do anything too harmful to the world. The matter of going to the place where Malkin was imprisoned was decided. At this time, little William had just finished roasting the meat. The two ended the topic and started to eat dinner. It must be said that the meat of the shapeshifter was really unpalatable. The meat was woody, and it felt like biting a piece of leather. The three of them all had a grinning look on their faces. Of course, they could not eat it, and then they would have to starve tonight. It's rare to see the meat of the phantom monster. Xia, thanks to you tonight, I finally have the opportunity to taste the meat of the phantom monster. Xia Changqing glanced at Gregory and didn't care about the old man's words of trying to make fun of the situation. This kind of meat is really hard to swallow. Even if it is rare, he doesn't want it. After swallowing a few mouthfuls with difficulty, Xia Changqing finally threw away the meat in his hand in frustration. You guys eat it. I really don't have the blessing to enjoy it. On the other side, Gregory immediately threw the meat in his hand to little William. William, you are still growing up. You should eat more meat. The teacher is old, so I won't fight with you. In the dense forest, little William's complaints were heard from time to time. In the quarrels of the three people, the night passed quickly. It was calm, and the lonely ghosts in the dense forest seemed to realize that Xia Changqing and the other two were not easy to mess with, so nothing happened that night. In the morning, after drinking the soup cooked by little William, the three packed up, drove Gregory's carriage, and started their journey. Chapter 113, Mountaintop. There are many forks in the mountain. The only feature of this world is that there are many mountains, waters, trees, and beautiful environment, and the scenery is in its original state everywhere. The two-horse carriage passed through the forest, crossed the river, and crossed the mountain top. 3 days later, Xia Changqing and his three companions came to the bottom of a steep peak. The steep peak is difficult to walk on, and the carriage is difficult to jump. The three people had to abandon the horses and get off the carriage and walk up the mountain. Malkin has become a shadow in Gregory's heart. To be on the safe side, Gregory brought equipment, which pitied little William. At such a young age, he needed to carry heavy items. There was no way. In order to deal with Malkin in the dragon state, they needed at least a silver net. Silver powder is also a must, plus weapons. This set of equipment is not easy. Fortunately, little William has followed Gregory for so long. Although he has not fully grown into a demon hunter who can stand on his own, it is more than enough to carry these things and trek. The mountain is steep and sloped, and it is extremely difficult to walk. Ordinary people will never set foot on such a mountain. This is also the reason why Gregory chose to imprison Malkin here. The less people go, the safer it can be. It took the three of them 3 days to get here, and now it took half a day just to climb the mountain. When the three finally climbed to the top of the mountain, they were all exhausted. This is a barren mountain with no scenery to speak of. Just staying here for a long time is enough to drive people crazy, not to mention being locked up in a dark cave. Xia Changqing thought that if he were Malkin, He would definitely hate Gregory to the core. Without further ado, under the leadership of Gregory, the three crossed the top of the mountain and came to the place where Malkin was imprisoned. On the bare top of the mountain, an iron cover abruptly covered a cave entrance, surrounded by iron nails as thick as thumbs. Standing at the edge of the cave entrance, Gregory's expression was extremely complicated. Malkin is locked up in here. Xia Changqing and little William stretched their heads at the same time and looked into the dark and deep cave, but they could only see darkness and could not see anything clearly. However, in Xia Changqing's perception, he could find that deep in this cave, there was a huge life form, which must be Malkin herself. She was not dead, but still alive and well. Xia Changqing could sense that, although Malkin's life fire was weak, it was extremely tenacious and there was no sign of any shaking or extinguishing. I think Malkin is dead. Listen, there is no movement from inside. Think about it, decades have passed. Even if Malkin is a powerful witch, it is impossible for her to survive for so long. Gregory laughed at himself. He really believed Xia Changqing's lies, and ran all the way here to see if Malkin was dead. It's not that there is no movement, Master Gregory, listen carefully. Do you hear a faint breathing sound? After hearing Xia Changqing's words, Gregory's expression was stunned, and he looked at Xia Changqing in disbelief. Impossible. Impossible. Shh, listen carefully. Xia Changqing closed his eyes and pretended to listen attentively. Gregory was in a dilemma. He followed Xia Changqing's example and closed his eyes, gathering the distracting thoughts in his mind and listening carefully to the sound coming from the cave. Who inhale who he heard it. The barely detectable breathing sound echoed in the depths of the cave. The sound was very faint, and if you were not very careful, you would not hear it at all. Malkin. Malkin. She is still alive. Gregory's face was full of surprise and horror. He was afraid that this method could not kill Malkin. If Malkin escaped, the dark forces would definitely make a comeback. Then, Gregory's face immediately became resolute. Legend has it that the seventh son of the seventh son possesses unimaginable power. I want to find that seventh son, train him, and defeat Malkin when she returns. Xia Changqing's eyes flickered. Gregory's idea of looking for the seventh son should have happened 5 years later, when Malkin escaped and killed little William in revenge for Gregory. That was the official beginning of the story about the seventh son. Unexpectedly, because of him, Gregory had this idea in advance. Seventh son? The seventh son of the seventh son. Gregory, do you believe in this legendary thing? The prophecy of the seventh son must be true. I will go down the mountain as soon as possible, find out clearly, and find the seventh child immediately. Gregory said in an unusually swift and resolute manner, and was not shaken by Xia Changqing's words. The legend of the seventh son was passed down by the Falcon Knights, and Gregory firmly believed in this prophecy. Xia, thank you very much for your warning. If you hadn't strongly requested me, I might not have noticed it until Malkin was freed. Xia Changqing lowered his eyes and did not answer Gregory. After Gregory cast a doubtful look, Xia Changqing said with a righteous face, Master Gregory, you take William with you. I will stay here to prevent Malkin from escaping in advance. Gregory's face showed surprise again, but before Gregory could persuade him, Xia Changqing continued, Master Gregory, you don't have to persuade me. I'm not doing this for you. As a demon hunter, you must have this awareness. Although I can't completely eliminate Malkin, I can also do my part. Master Gregory, I hope you can find the seventh son as soon as possible and let him have the power to eliminate Malkin. Gregory was almost moved to tears by Xia Changqing's righteousness. Of course, this is an exaggeration. Years of demon hunting career have made Gregory have a heart of stone. In the original plot, after Malkin escaped, when she went to trouble Gregory for the first time, Gregory locked her and William in a cage together. Even William, who had followed Gregory for 10 years, could harden his heart and light the fire, just to burn Malkin to death. It's a pity that Malkin, who had recovered her magic power, could not be easily burned to death by the fire. The final result could only be that Malkin turned into a dragon and flew away, and William died tragically. Now facing Xia Changqing, who took the initiative to volunteer, Gregory just opened his mouth, did not persuade again, but directly agreed. Xia, be careful. Xia Changqing smiled and nodded. Don't worry, Master Gregory, no matter what, I'm also a powerful demon hunter. Chapter 114 Malkin. There was wind blowing over the top of the mountain. Although it was not winter yet, Xia Changqing still felt a little chilly. It is cold at the top. The ancients were not lying to me. Wrapping his windbreaker a little tighter, Xia Changqing watched Gregory and little William disappear completely below the mountain. Queen Malkin, there are only two of us now. Xia Changqing muttered to himself, then smiled and put his head close to the iron cage. Hey, is anyone there? Xia Changqing shouted loudly into the cave. Is there anyone there? The echoing voice was transmitted in the cave and reached the bottom. Xia Changqing faintly heard the echo coming from the bottom. Queen Malkin, are you there? If you are, answer me. Otherwise, I will leave. When I leave, no one will let you out. Xia Changqing shouted to the cave tirelessly. In his perception, the fire of life deep in the cave began to burn violently. Who is it? Who is disturbing my eternal sleep? A majestic female voice suddenly appeared in Xia Changqing's ears, making his eyes unconsciously reveal the meaning of surrender. However, in just a moment, Xia Changqing's mind was clear, which made him pat his chest, and he was scared for a while. Unexpectedly, Malkin's voice was full of charm. Fortunately, Malkin's magic power has not been fully restored now. Her power was suppressed too much, and an iron cage blocked her escape. Queen Malkin, I came here to rescue you. If it's you, just agree. As Xia Changqing's voice echoed, in the dark underground cave, a demon dragon with a hideous head suddenly opened its eyes. In the dark golden eyeballs, there were erected golden pupils, which made people afraid. Roar, a deafening dragon roar sounded, and it was difficult to hide the excitement. After so many years, my brother, you finally found me. Let me out. I will bring our glory back to the earth. Malkin shouted excitedly in Xia Changqing's ear, so loud that it made his ears itch. Your Majesty, there is no problem in letting you out, but what benefits do I get? Xia Changqing pouted, and said directly to the cave. Benefits? Being able to release the great Malkin with your own hands is already the supreme honor for you. Of course, when I come out, I will give you the power to control the fate of mortals. Malkin's voice was already mixed with dissatisfaction. However, Xia Changqing didn't care, but he wouldn't let Malkin out just like that. Let's talk about something practical. Queen Malkin, the dark forces are no longer as strong as before. Since you were imprisoned, the dark forces have suffered a serious blow from Gregory. Even if you escape, it is impossible to restore the glory of the dark forces. At this moment, Xia Changqing had already regarded himself as a member of the dark forces. As a member of the dark forces, a bad guy, it should be reasonable not to release the eagle until he sees the rabbit, and not to release the person until he gets the power. Gregory. What was beyond Xia Changqing's expectation was that Malkin fell into a state of rage after hearing Gregory's name. Malkin was imprisoned in this dark place by Gregory for decades. Although Malkin could fall into a deep sleep most of the time, and could not feel the passage of time, there were many times when she was awake. In this underground cave, every day that passed, Malkin's hatred for Gregory became more intense. Why are you yelling so loudly? Xia Changqing picked his ears and said dissatisfiedly. As Xia Changqing said this, the air around him seemed to solidify. For many years, since Malkin became the Queen of Darkness, no one dared to speak to her in such an unreasonable tone. The murderous intent in her heart was surging, and Malkin roared angrily. She spread her wings and flew up from the ground, all the way up, and then slammed into the iron cage. Bang! With a crisp sound, Malkin wailed and fell back into the cave. Xia Changqing watched this scene with wide eyes. Malkin's image of the dragon almost broke through the iron cage. Unfortunately, it was not yet the blood moon, and Malkin's power was too weak. In Xia Changqing's view, it was too unscientific that the iron cage that he could split with a sword could trap Malkin. However, this world is originally a fantasy world and cannot be measured by ordinary science. Malkin, who fell back to the ground, roared unwillingly. It was really a tiger in the plain, being bullied by a dog. She was a dark queen, but now she was threatened by a junior. The anger in her heart can be imagined. Xia Changqing did not do anything to continue to provoke Malkin at this time. He stood by the iron cage and waited until Malkin calmed down. Malkin did calm down quickly. She hid her anger deep in her heart. Whether it was Gregory or Xia Changqing now, they were already on her must-kill list. However, Malkin still needs Xia Changqing, a junior, to release her. Although Malkin is confident that she can recover her strength and rush out of the iron cage when the blood moon comes, it is unknown how long it will take for the blood moon to arrive. Now there is a ready-made person outside. As long as the iron cage is opened, she can regain her freedom. After being locked up for such a long time, Malkin finally saw the hope of escaping. She will not give up easily. Young man, what do you want? Power, authority, wealth. As long as you let me out, I can satisfy you. Malkin's calm voice with a hint of temptation sounded in Xia Changqing's ears again. She called on the few magic powers in her body and used the charm magic to charm Xia Changqing. Queen Malkin, do you want to control me? Xia Changqing's calm words startled Malkin. Before she could take the next step, she heard Xia Changqing's voice turn cold. Queen Malkin, you must remember that I'm not your subordinate, and now you need my help. Put away your little tricks, and don't let me catch you using these unpresentable little tricks again. Malkin's anger surged out again, but now she could only force herself to hold it back. Because just as Xia Changqing said, now she needs help from the other party. If Xia Changqing just turned around and left, she didn't know how long she would have to wait before she could get out of trouble. Okay, don't worry, I will never use these little tricks again. Now, can you tell me your conditions? Chapter 115, Bluff. In the underground cave, Malkin finally gave in to Xia Changqing. She took back her magic power and started talking to Xia Changqing in a normal tone. I need you to tell me how to get magic power and how you became a witch. Xia Changqing's question made Malkin stunned at first, and then she suddenly laughed. She heard the ambition hidden in Xia Changqing's words. Young man, do you want to be a witch like the great Queen Malkin? Then your plan will fail. Unless your mother is a witch, you can inherit her bloodline. Tell me, is your mother a witch? Malkin's question made Xia Changqing's mouth twitch slightly. He was sure that his parents were ordinary people. How could his mother be a witch? And Xia Changqing's silence also made Malkin realize something. Young man, let's change the conditions. I can't help you become a witch. Is there really no way? Xia Changqing looked grim. His purpose was not to become a witch, but to gain magic power. As long as he had magic power, he would have the opportunity to move from an ordinary person to an extraordinary person. Of course. Malkin said gloatingly, there are only two ways to become a witch. One is to inherit from your mother, and the other is to awaken yourself. But all the witches who can awaken are women. Men can't awaken themselves to become witches. Malkin said confidently. I didn't say that you have to become a witch, Malkin. If I just want to have magic power, do you have any way? Of course, throw yourself into the arms of darkness. Let me out, and I can personally give you power. Xia Changqing was of course not so stupid. Things seemed to have fallen into a deadlock. If Xia Changqing didn't release Malkin, he wouldn't be able to gain power, but if he released Malkin, Xia Changqing swore that the other party would turn against him. After a moment, Xia Changqing continued to ask, change the condition. Tell me how you witches absorb magic power and enhance your strength. After a long time, Malkin slowly said, there are many ways for witches to increase their magic power. The simplest one is that there are a lot of free magic power floating around us. We can absorb this magic power into our bodies and enhance our strength. Of course, this method is very inefficient. Tell me this method. Xia Changqing asked immediately after Malkin finished speaking. Whether or not to obtain magic power depends on this one move. Are you sure? The method of absorbing magic power is exclusive to us witches. Even if you, a mortal, know it, it's useless. Whether it's useful or not, it's none of your business. Just tell me the method. Malkin sneered in her heart. She didn't mind telling Xia Changqing the method, because the method of absorbing magic power requires the existence of magic power in the body and strong mental power. Only then can you use mental power to observe the free magic power around you, and then attract them into the body and attach them to the original magic power. As a mortal, without any magic power, he can't attract the free magic power around him. A difficult and obscure message was directly transmitted to Xia Changqing through his mental power. This is something that is difficult to express in words. It can only be understood, but not expressed in words. After Xia Changqing received this message, the long-lost system finally appeared. Dark Queen Malkin teaches you the magic extraction technique. You learn to extract free magic. Skill update. Magic extraction technique. Passive. At the moment, when the system's skills were updated, Xia Changqing subconsciously activated the magic extraction technique. He could clearly sense that around his body, countless, densely packed little things happily drilled into his body. These energies gathered together and wandered in Xia Changqing's body. He couldn't help but sigh with comfort. This feeling was really hard to describe in words. And because this skill is passive, Xia Changqing doesn't need to control it at all. He is now extracting the free magic power around him every moment. Although these free magic powers are few and thin, Xia Changqing believes that after gathering them, he will eventually become a great wizard. This feeling of becoming stronger every moment is so cool. Xia Changqing can feel that his body is being washed and changed by magic power at the cellular level. What do you think, young man? Is it useless? I have said that it is impossible for mortals to succeed. You should let me out. I will personally give you power. After hearing that, Xia Changqing did not move for a long time. Malkin finally couldn't help but said. After a long time of enjoyment, Xia Changqing almost forgot that there was a Malkin here. Xia Changqing smiled secretly in his heart, and his eyes were shining. Malkin, as the Queen of Darkness and the most powerful witch in name, must have a lot of witchcraft. Xia Changqing would not be so kind to let her out unless these witchcrafts were squeezed dry. Queen Malkin, you are right. I really can't sense the existence of magic. But if you want me to let you out, can you tell me all the witchcraft you know to satisfy my curiosity? Xia Changqing's tone was filled with frustration that was hard to conceal, which made Malkin very happy. In her mind, a mortal who actually wanted to steal the power of a witch was already guilty of a death sentence. However, Xia Changqing's additional request made Malkin impatient. Young man, you are too greedy. I have already met your request and told you how to extract magic power. Now it's your turn to keep your promise. Don't worry, Queen Malkin, you know that I'm just a mortal. If I'll let you out, what if you turn against me and are ruthless? I have no way to resist you. And my only wish is to become like a witch, but now it seems impossible. My request now is just to know how powerful the witch's power is. By that time, even if I die, I can rest in peace. Queen Malkin, you have to believe what I say. As long as you can meet my requirements, I will let you out immediately. Xia Changqing said to Malkin earnestly, Dear Queen Malkin, I'm just a mortal, and it's impossible for me to hurt you. And I dare not lie to you. I think even if I didn't let you out, you would get out of trouble sooner or later, and then you would come to me for revenge. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, The Dragon Roars. The Dark Queen Malkin teaches you the art of transformation. You have learned the art of transformation. Dragon. Skill update. Dragon transformation LV1. 0%. The Dark Queen Malkin teaches you. Xia Changqing looked at the texts that kept appearing and disappearing on the system panel expressionlessly, and his heart was already full of joy. It was worth his persuasion, deception, for so long. Malkin finally taught Xia Changqing some of the witchcraft she knew through her mental power. Although Xia Changqing was very sure that this was not all the witchcraft that Malkin knew, it was definitely some of the more powerful ones. The transformation alone had made Xia Changqing a fortune, not to mention some methods of using magic power. Xia Changqing's mind moved, and he secretly chanted the spell of the dragon transformation, wanting to experience the feeling of flying into the sky. Failed to use the skill. Insufficient magic power. Xia Changqing stood there in silence. It was really embarrassing. Although he had learned the magic dragon transformation technique, the thin magic power in his body could not support him to transform into a magic dragon. How to say it? If 1 unit of magic power is needed to transform into a magic dragon, then Xia Changqing only has 0.01 magic power units in his body at this time. In other words, if Xia Changqing wants to transform into a magic dragon, he needs to accumulate 100 times the magic power in his body to meet the minimum requirement. Alas. Xia Changqing sighed, and there is a long way to go. Young man, why are you sighing? I have satisfied you with everything you want. Can you let me out now? Malkin roared in the cave, and Xia Changqing did not move for a long time, which made Malkin's patience almost exhausted. It's just a pity that Xia Changqing has no intention of releasing Malkin now. How could he be so stupid as to release his enemy? With Malkin's character, the first person she wants to kill after she escapes from the predicament must be him, her savior. In order to prevent Malkin from attacking him, Xia Changqing decided not to release Malkin, since his goal had been achieved. As for whether Malkin would come to seek revenge after she came out, Xia Changqing was not worried about it. Even if the sky fell, there would still be tall people to support it. Even if Malkin escaped, he would first seek revenge on Gregory. As for him, Malkin could only remember his voice at most. Does Malkin know what she looks like? I don't know. Does Malkin know what her name is? I don't know. What is there to worry about? Now that Malkin's magic power is suppressed, she may not be able to remember her own breath, let alone worry. Don't worry, Queen Malkin, I'll let you out now. Xia Changqing shouted loudly. Hurry up, I don't want to stay here at all. Malkin shouted angrily. Don't worry, it will be done soon. Xia Changqing promised, and knocked on the iron cage with Winter a few times, making a clanging sound. After a moment, Xia Changqing's voice rang out again. Oh, Queen, this iron cage made by Gregory is too strong. I can't open it. But don't worry, I will find a way. Don't move here, I will come back after finding help. While shouting, Xia Changqing had already greased his feet and ran very fast. In the underground cave, Malkin was completely stunned. She couldn't believe that the mortal really dared to play tricks on her. She is the Dark Queen Malkin. Roar the dragon roared, and Malkin's angry roar echoed on the top of the mountain, making Xia Changqing unconsciously speed up her pace. In any case, Xia Changqing still felt a little guilty for deceiving Malkin like this. Facing the mortal who played tricks on her, Malkin wanted to say something harsh, but she didn't know how to say it. She knew nothing about the appearance and name of the young man. Even if she wanted to say something harsh, she had no one to target. Malkin felt more and more frustrated. She could only roar and call out a name. Gregory. Gregory. The bitter hatred in this name made Xia Changqing shiver. It's really cold on this mountain. Xia Changqing muttered to himself, wrapped his windbreaker tightly, and quickened his pace down the mountain. Hall Village is a village near the mountains and rivers, close to rivers and forests. This kind of village is very common in this world. There are 13 households in the village. They live here all year round, leading a self-sufficient life. They rarely go out and rarely contact other people. Because the village is far away from the stockade where people gather, some merchants and mercenaries will not set foot here. This has formed the somewhat closed appearance of Hall Village. But one afternoon, an uninvited guest suddenly came to Hall Village. It was a young man with a long sword on his body, who looked like a mercenary. However, the young man claimed to be an adventurer, because he was tired of the life of being a home away from home, and wanted to settle down in Hall Village. For such a man of unknown origin and armed, the people of Hall Village refused to let him settle down here. This relatively closed village is relatively xenophobic. It's just that the other party gave too much money, so much that they had no way to refuse. Although the people in the village have the attributes of Otacus and are unwilling to deal with outsiders, it does not mean that they don't need money. There is nothing that a gold coin can't do. If there is, then add another one. The young man is naturally Xia Changqing. He really wants to find a place to settle down and improve his strength. Wait until the world is invincible, and then go out to wander, which is safer. Under Xia Changqing's gold coin offensive, the villagers of Hall Village unanimously agreed that Xia Changqing would be a member of their village in the future. Within 2 days, a wooden house rose from the ground. With the help of the enthusiastic villagers of Hall Village, Xia Changqing successfully had his own home in Hall Village, and also got an extra piece of land. As for the land, Xia Changqing, who had never planted crops, made a lot of jokes. After showing a small bag of copper coins, the helpful villagers of Hall Village helped Xia Changqing to take care of the land perfectly without him having to do anything. After arriving in Hall Village, Xia Changqing's favorite thing to do was to go to the river not far from the village, put down a fishing rod, and sit there all day. In the eyes of the villagers, Xia Changqing, who had already lived a retirement life in advance, was undoubtedly enviable. But they didn't know that what Xia Changqing really did was to absorb magic power all the time. His strength was getting stronger day by day. Chapter 117. 5 years. Summer goes and autumn comes, spring comes and winter goes. The days in Hall Village are as ordinary as ever, and the villagers live a self-sufficient life and enjoy it. In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. Xia Changqing has also been in Hall Village for 5 years. In the past 5 years, some people have grown old and returned to the earth, and new people have been born, adding a bit of laughter. What surprised the villagers of Hall Village was that 5 years had passed, and the young adventurer who came to their village to settle down 5 years ago did not change much. The cold winter has just passed, and spring has returned to the earth. The mountains are green and the water is gurgling. By the rushing river, a straight figure is sitting still. This person is Xia Changqing. He sits by the river, holding a fishing rod, seemingly fishing, but actually closing his eyes to rest. The most surprising thing is that the hook that Xia Changqing threw into the river is actually a straight hook. Jiang Taegang fishes, and those who are willing to take the bait are the ones who are willing to take the bait. Xia Changqing fishes, but he doesn't use a hook, he uses magic. The subtle magic is wrapped around the straight hook, and when the fish is hooked, the magic will bend into a hook and catch the fish. This requires extremely delicate control of magic. Facts have proved that Xia Changqing has not been wasting his time in the past 5 years. Brother Xia, are you fishing again? My mother cooked vegetable soup and roasted a large piece of venison and asked me to call you. The figure of the teenager has not yet appeared, and the loud voice rang first. The sudden movement made Xia Changqing's hands tremble. In his perception, the fish that was about to bite the hook immediately turned around and fled in panic. After feeling the vibration of the hook, Xia Changqing's heart moved. How could he let the fish that was about to be hooked run away easily? There was magic flowing, extending from the hook, forming an invisible silk thread, which instantly entangled the fish that was about to escape. With the fishing rod in his hand, a grass carp, as long as a palm was caught. Xia Changqing swung the fishing rod, and the grass carp fell accurately into the bucket beside him. With a slight smile on his face, Xia Changqing turned his head to look at the boy who had already run up to him, and was breathing slightly. Xiaoji, take the fish bucket, and go back to ask your mother to make a pot of fish soup. Xia Changqing pointed to the bucket, and said to the boy. The boy was Xia Changqing's neighbor. His name was Jerome. He was only 13 years old this year, but his physique was already very tall, no different from a 15 or 16-year-old boy. The main reason was that in the past few years, Xia Changqing often ate at the boy's house, so he would go to the forest to hunt some animals, or catch some fish from the river to improve his life. With good food, Xiaoji, who was still a child, naturally had enough nutrition, and it was also a very common thing for him to grow taller than his peers. In this matter, Xiaoji's parents were very grateful to Xia Changqing. Xiaoji himself had as many as 5 brothers and sisters. For a small village in the countryside, it was a very difficult thing to raise so many children. Most families would send their sons to big towns to become apprentices when their children grow up, and their daughters would be married off early. Few children could stay with them. Just like the 7th son that Gregory wanted to find, he directly gave the child's father a bag of gold coins, and then a son could be sold to Gregory. By the river, Xia Changqing leisurely put away his fishing rod, wound up the fishing line, held it in his hand, and walked slowly towards the village with his hands behind his back. Behind him, Xiaoji followed closely with a bucket full of fish. Brother Xia, I will be 14 in the summer. My father said that he hopes I can learn a craft. Do you have any good suggestions? Jerome followed behind Xia Changqing and suddenly mentioned this matter. The half-grown boy's tone was full of longing for the future, but there was still some confusion in it. As a country boy, Xiaoji's fate was originally fixed. He either farmed and raised pigs in the countryside, or went to a big city to make a living, hoping that some skilled masters would take a liking to him. Xia Changqing was also slightly silent about this question. He still hoped that this simple boy could have a stable life. He didn't know whether it was right or wrong for him to teach him swordsmanship. Xiaoji, follow your heart. No matter what you want to do, don't forget what I taught you. That is something that will benefit you for life. Although Xia Changqing has been staying in Hall Village for the past 5 years and has never seen any trace of monsters, it does not mean that there are no monsters in this world. In such a world, it is very lucky to have a set of martial arts to protect yourself and your family. Brother Xia, don't worry, I will definitely not forget it. I practice every day now. The boy was full of energy. Seeing this scene, Xia Changqing felt that his mood had improved. Unconsciously, he had spent a long time in various worlds. Although his appearance had not changed, in terms of mentality, Xia Changqing felt a little vicissitudes. After a few steps, the two had returned to the village. Mother, we are back. Xiaoji rushed in with a smile and showed off the fish bucket in his hand to his mother. Delia glared at Xiaoji in reproach. This is the fish caught by your brother Xia again. Why don't you send it to his house quickly? Don't bring it to our house every time. Xia Changqing smiled and waved his hand and said indifferently, Aunt Delia, don't blame Xiaoji. I asked him to bring it. I don't really want to cook. It's better for you to cook it directly, and I will eat it. Such conversations have happened countless times in the past 5 years. Aunt Delia always has to be polite. Or maybe Xia Changqing gave people a feeling of being too cold. Except for children and teenagers who are close to him, all the adults in the village always subconsciously want to keep a distance from him. Xia Changqing had no intention of changing this kind of ambiguous relationship. He would have to leave sooner or later anyway. Rather than being too sad when parting, it would be better to keep a distance now to avoid being too sad in the future. Therefore, in the whole village, Xia Changqing had a pretty good relationship with Xiaoji's family, and other villagers were just casual friends. Even if they met, they just nodded and smiled at each other. In the evening, he still spent time at Xiaoji's house. Xia Changqing, who was alone, was too lazy to cook. But after dinner, when he wanted to go home, Xia Changqing suddenly felt a strange change. Chapter 118 Blood Moon. Xia Changqing walked out of the wooden house. It was already dark. Life in the countryside was hard, and there were no entertainment activities at night, so he usually didn't stay in other people's homes for long. After all, the only evening activities for all the villagers were bed exercises, which was why every household had so many children. If you disturb others on such matters, you will be cursed. As usual, Xia Changqing was ready to return to his own house with a leisurely look, but the moment he stepped out of Xiaoji's house, he unexpectedly felt a different breath. Feeling the source of the strange breath, Xia Changqing quickly looked up, and his pupils suddenly contracted. Under Xia Changqing's gaze, only a small section of the moon was exposed. The originally bright and clear moonlight slowly climbed up some other colors at this time. It was an ominous crimson. Blood moon? This thought quickly flashed through Xia Changqing's mind. This was indeed a sign of the coming of the blood moon. Although the moon was not full now, it was just a crescent, but the color on it had indeed become crimson. Xia Changqing couldn't help but take a deep breath. When the moon was painted with crimson, he clearly felt that the free magic power around him was more than doubled. Originally, Xia Changqing could only absorb and store 0.01 units of magic power from the surroundings every day. Now he felt that he could absorb 0.02 units every day. Don't underestimate the magic power that has only doubled. If Xia Changqing stays in this state for a long time, he can save half the time to achieve such an achievement. According to Xia Changqing's own measurement method, the total amount of magic power in his body so far is only 17 units. Of course, the magic power that can support him to transform into a magic dragon only requires 1 unit of magic power. However, without comparison, Xia Changqing can't be sure whether his total amount of magic power is more or less. If there is a chance, Xia Changqing intends to measure his current achievements from Malkin. Suddenly thinking of Malkin, Xia Changqing hasn't seen him for 5 years. At this time, the blood moon has appeared, and he doesn't know whether Malkin has escaped from the cage. After a long time of silence, Xia Changqing suddenly wanted to go to the mountain to see if Malkin had escaped. Xia Changqing did not plan to go home, and he went directly to the forest next to the village. The moonlight was crimson at this time. Although it was not very bright, it could still illuminate the road ahead. Moreover, Xia Changqing had long been able to see the road without using his eyes. Riding on the moonlight, Xia Changqing walked into the forest. A moment later, a dark figure rushed into the sky like lightning. Facing the moonlight, the black figure spread its huge wings and revealed its entire appearance. It was a ferocious black dragon. He had scales like steel armor, thick hind legs, forelimbs with sharp claws, and a pair of wide wings with a wingspan of 4 meters. On the ferocious dragon head, there were 2 sharp horns growing diagonally upwards. No matter how you look at it, Xia Changqing's appearance at this time was the appearance of the evil dragon defeated by the warrior in the legend. It was a pity that his evil dragon was far from the level of a giant dragon. That's right, the magic dragon that Xia Changqing transformed into at this time can only be regarded as a young dragon in the group of giant dragons. Xia Changqing also had a guess in his heart that maybe when the level of his magic dragon transformation technique is raised, his size and ability will be stronger. Now the magic dragon that Xia Changqing transformed into still has many weaknesses. At least silver is the best means to suppress his transformation. Xia Changqing, who transformed into a magic dragon, flew high into the sky. He couldn't help but roar. This might be the nature of the magic dragon, which made Xia Changqing unable to help himself. His whole body was bathed in the crimson moonlight. Xia Changqing spread his wings and flew towards the mountains where Malkin was. When he was still a human, it took Xia Changqing several days to reach the mountain where Malkin was from whole village. Now that he has transformed into a magic dragon, Xia Changqing only needs to gently flap his wings to fly forward like an arrow from a string. Even the wind was left behind him. If someone looked up at the route Xia Changqing had passed, they would have seen a black shadow passing through the sky at a very fast speed. However, half an hour later, Xia Changqing, who had been walking in a straight line, successfully arrived at the top of the mountain where Malkin was imprisoned. He fell from the sky, stirring up a cloud of dust on the ground. The body of the demon dragon quickly shrank and returned to human form in an instant. Xia Changqing walked to the iron cage where Malkin was imprisoned. At this time, a large hole had been broken in the iron cage that was originally unbreakable. In his perception, Malkin was no longer in the cave. Where is Gregory? This thought flashed through Xia Changqing's mind. Knowing that it was impossible to trap Malkin to death, Gregory was not prepared at all and let Malkin run out. I don't know what the old demon hunter was thinking. Xia Changqing carefully sensed the breath left here. He was sure that there was no other breath left except Malkin. Squinting his eyes slightly, he determined from the concentration of the remaining breath that Malkin had not been away for long. But think about it, the blood moon had just appeared, and Malkin had just gained the ability to leave the iron cage. After thinking about it for a while, Xia Changqing gave up the idea of looking for Malkin now. Although Malkin was the queen of the dark forces and a real evil witch, Xia Changqing was not a pure demon hunter. He was just borrowing the name of a demon hunter. Xia Changqing would not waste his energy on something that would not be beneficial. With Malkin's character, he would seek revenge on Gregory sooner or later, but he didn't know how Gregory trained the 7th son. When the snipe and the clam quarrel, the fisherman benefits. Or it can be said that the mantis stalks the cicada, and the oriole is behind. Xia Changqing wanted to be the fisherman and the oriole, so he planned to secretly observe Malkin's current strength first. Let Gregory consume some of the enemy's energy first, and it would be best if he could beat Malkin to a low HP. Then he would appear as the savior, and try to squeeze out all of Malkin's hidden abilities. As for the appearance of the blood moon, Malkin's strength will definitely become stronger with the passage of time. But at the same time, Xia Changqing's strength is also increasing exponentially. The appearance of the blood moon increases not only Malkin's strength, but also his own strength. After figuring this out, Xia Changqing was no longer in a hurry. He memorized Malkin's aura and just needed to keep an eye on Malkin's actions at all times. Chapter 119 Revenge. The dragon suddenly rose up, and the shadow swept across the sky. In the middle of the night, Xia Changqing flew back to Hall Village in the form of a dragon. He stood in front of his house again. His eyes were extremely complicated. Unknowingly, he had lived here for 5 years. It was impossible to say that he had no feelings for this place. However, he was just a passerby after all, and it was impossible for him to stay in the same world for a long time. Forget it. It's better to leave. It's better to leave. Xia Changqing walked into the room and packed up his things. Valyrian steel sword, pistol, silver chainmail. The equipment belonging to the demon hunter was put on again. Xia Changqing took a last look at the house and left Hall Village overnight. Early the next morning, when Xiaoji from the neighbor's house came to look for Xia Changqing as usual, he was surprised to find that Xia Changqing was no longer in the house. Logically, Xia Changqing would not get up so early. Xiaoji was puzzled and finally found the letter Xia Changqing left for him and a silver dagger on the table. At this time, Xia Changqing had already left Hall Village and was on his way to find Gregory. The dagger and letter left for Xiaoji were just a thought that Xia Changqing wanted to leave behind, a token to prove that he had been to this world. After leaving Hall Village, Xia Changqing completely forgot about the villagers of Hall Village, Xiaoji, Aunt Delia and others. To him, those people were just passers-by, and to the villagers of Hall Village, Xia Changqing was just a passerby. This world is big and small. For Gregory, the demon hunter mentor, this world is too small. At this time, Gregory was sitting in a carriage, just like the carriage that Xia Changqing had seen 5 years ago. Gregory's equipment has not changed over the years. Unlike the state of living in a days 5 years ago, Gregory now has 2 apprentices under his command. In addition to William, he has accepted another apprentice. This apprentice is about the same age as William, but his position in Gregory's heart is not comparable to William's. Because this apprentice is the legendary 7th son, the 7th son of the 7th son. This is a difficult statement, but it is undeniable that in the legend of the Falcon Knights, the 7th son has abilities that ordinary people cannot match. Although Gregory has not found anything special about him for so long. But it does not prevent Gregory from using this 7th son as a secret weapon against Malkin. Since Gregory discovered that Malkin was not dead 5 years ago, he has been preparing for today. During this period, Gregory also returned to the mountain, where Malkin was imprisoned. Gregory did not investigate the disappearance of the young demon hunter named Xia. As long as Malkin was still imprisoned in the underground cave, Gregory did not care about other things. It was drizzling, and the 2-horse carriage was galloping on the muddy road in the countryside. The news conveyed by the bells was that in a town, a little girl about 10 years old was possessed by an evil spirit. The pastor of the church could not handle this problem, so he asked the demon hunter Gregory for help. So facing the rain, Gregory drove to this church, accompanied by his 2 apprentices, William and Tom. Thomas Ward, the legendary 7th son, but Gregory prefers to call him Tom. William, Tom, take your weapons, don't forget the silver powder. Gregory jumped off the carriage and ordered the 2 apprentices. He had already rushed to the church under the guidance of the pastor. As soon as he opened the door of the church, Gregory grabbed the cross flying towards him, and the power of the evil spirit was ready to move around. The girl was tied to the pillar of the church with thick chains, and there was a power that did not belong to her in her body. The girl's face was full of hideousness. She stared at Gregory and his group with vicious eyes and roared incomprehensible. Judging from the current situation, the girl was indeed possessed by an evil spirit. Gregory was already very experienced in this situation. He was not afraid, but squatted in front of the girl and took out a small bottle from his arms. The thing in the bottle was silver powder. No matter what kind of monster it was, silver was the best weapon to deal with them. Silver powder could drive evil spirits out of the girl's body. Gregory was familiar with this and had already smeared silver powder on his thumb. However, at this moment, the little girl suddenly spoke, but the voice she made was not her own, but a low and hoarse female voice. Gregory, you locked me up in that dark cave and humiliated me. You should have thought that there would be a day when I would be free. The voice from the girl's mouth made Gregory look stunned, and then he reacted immediately. Malkin, you are back. I expected this day to come. But now, get out of the girl's body. Gregory's thumb covered with silver powder pressed hard on the girl's forehead. The girl struggled hard, but under the effect of the silver powder, Malkin had to leave the girl's body. As the girl fell to the ground, black shadows rose from her body. This was the purest dark power. Gregory looked at this scene with a serious expression. Although he had expected it in his heart, when Malkin stood in front of him again, Gregory still felt a little nervous. Because Gregory had discovered that Malkin's power had recovered a lot. This disgusting dark power had a strong smell that he couldn't help but smell. The black energy intertwined with each other and quickly condensed into a human form. A beautiful woman appeared in front of everyone. This person was the Dark Queen Malkin. She was wearing gorgeous black clothes and her long hair draped over her shoulders. At first glance, Malkin was still a very charming woman. However, her fingers replaced by claws silently explained that this was a very dangerous woman. She would use the claws in her hands to pierce your heart without hesitation. Dear Gregory, after so many years, I wonder if you miss me? Malkin said very elegantly with her red lips slightly opened. I know you are thinking about me. I can see through your heart. To be honest, I miss you too, Gregory. Facing such a Malkin, Gregory felt like he was facing a formidable enemy. He knew very well in his heart that a woman who was in madness could do anything. Chapter 120 Hidden Arrow. Boom. Thunder roared, and the rain fell a little heavier. In the church, the tense situation continued. Malkin looked at Gregory's two apprentices with a little joking. She could clearly see the expressions of fear on the two boys' faces. Fear would make Malkin's power stronger. She used her charm ability without hesitation, making William and Tom's eyes blurry, their faces full of obsession, and they unconsciously walked towards Malkin. However, Malkin's trick might be useful for the two apprentices, but it couldn't deal with Gregory. William and Tom woke up and Gregory shouting. The battle was about to break out. Malkin roared, twisted his body, and turned into a dragon, breaking through the door of the church and flying outside. Unlike the dragon, transformed by Xia Changqing, Malkin's dragon form was smaller, and Malkin's dragon form had no limbs. In addition to two thick hind limbs, her arms turned into wings, and she did not have the same forelimbs as Xia Changqing. In addition, there were additional sharp bone spurs growing from Malkin's back to the top of her head, which Xia Changqing did not have. Malkin, who broke through the church gate, was hit by the silver net thrown by William and Tom before she could fly into the sky. Silver was suppressing the flow of magic power in Malkin's body, and now Malkin had just escaped from the cage and was eager to seek revenge on Gregory. Her strength had not recovered to its heyday. At this time, the silver net restricted her too much. Under the pull of Gregory's master and apprentice, even Malkin, who had transformed into a magic dragon, could not break free for a while. The competition between the two sides did not last too long. When Malkin's magic power was suppressed to the point that she could no longer maintain the magic dragon form, she fell directly from the sky and regained her human form in the muddy rain. Malkin, who had difficulty in getting out of the silver net, looked very embarrassed. Her body was covered with mud and water. At this moment, she did not have any grace that a Dark Queen should have. In order to deal with Malkin, Gregory had already prepared a huge iron cage, and now was the time to use the iron cage. Together with his apprentice, the three of them struggled to lift Malkin and threw her into the iron cage. Just as Gregory was about to lower the iron door and trap Malkin in the iron cage, a tail that seemed to be made of steel stretched out from the iron cage and went straight to William. Perhaps it was the inevitability of historical development. William, who was originally destined to die here, was standing with Tom at this time, but Malkin's target was aimed at him. Seeing that William was about to be entangled by Malkin's tail, in a flash, a long sword flew from a distance, and at the critical moment, the long sword hit Malkin's tail. Bang! With a crisp sound, Malkin couldn't help but scream in pain, and quickly retracted his tail, and his purpose of catching Gregory's apprentice was directly defeated. Until then, William, who heard the noise and looked back, had a layer of cold sweat seeping out of his back. The rain made him shiver. Boom. At this time, the door of the iron cage also fell, completely trapping Malkin inside. Who saved me? This thought flashed through William's mind. He looked in the direction where the long sword flew, and there was a black shadow flashing. Without too much time to think, William quickly turned his attention back to Malkin. "Get out of the way, William," Gregory shouted. He had already rushed to the iron cage with a lit torch in his hand. After avoiding William, he threw the torch directly into the iron cage. Although it was raining now, Gregory had already sprinkled kerosene in the iron cage, which meant he was always ready. The kerosene was quickly ignited by the torch, and the raging fire quickly spread throughout the iron cage. Malkin was laughing wildly. She tore the silver net apart and loudly declared war on Gregory. "Gregory, we won't end this way. I will come to you again." As soon as she finished speaking, Malkin's body had recovered a lot of magic power, and she turned into a magic dragon and directly broke through the iron cage specially prepared by Gregory. Today is different from the past. Before the blood moon appeared, Malkin might have been trapped in the iron cage. However, now Malkin's power has been amplified by the blood moon, and such an iron cage can no longer trap her. The magic dragon spread its wings and rushed straight into the sky. Gregory had lost the silver net. He no longer had the ability to restrict Malkin. Facing Malkin in the form of magic dragon, the three masters and apprentices seemed to be in a passive situation. At this moment, an arrow suddenly came. With the help of the dim environment of the rainy day, no one noticed when the arrow was shot. Malkin had just stabilized his body in midair when the sharp arrow broke through the air and shot directly through Malkin's wings. Malkin let out a painful roar, flapping her wings vigorously and looking at the direction of the arrow with her ferocious head. However, before Malkin could see who was attacking her, another arrow came through the air. Puff! The sound of the arrow piercing the membrane was heard again, and Malkin's body suspended in the air staggered and almost fell down. This arrow hit her wings again. At this time, Malkin was no longer in the mood to find the culprit. She just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Malkin flapped her wings and took off again. She narrowly avoided the arrow and flew away like a fire on her butt, fleeing the scene. From beginning to end, she did not find out who shot the three arrows. After Malkin left, Gregory, his master and his apprentice quickly turned their heads and looked in the same direction. A figure flashed out from the side of the house, revealing a bright smile. "Master Gregory, long time no see." The man chuckled and greeted. Tom may be very unfamiliar with the newcomer, but Gregory and William are very familiar with him. "Xia!" William shouted excitedly, "It's you. You are the one who saved me just now, right?" "Of course." Xia Changqing stepped forward and picked up his sword. In the crisis just now, Xia Changqing really didn't want to see William die. He risked being seen by Malkin and couldn't help but save William. Fortunately, Xia Changqing's subsequent arrows scared Malkin away, so that he didn't see what Xia Changqing looked like from beginning to end. This also reduced the risk of being recognized when Xia Changqing pretended to be a member of the Dark Forces and approached Malkin. "Xia, why are you here?" Gregory couldn't help asking. The old demon hunter had some doubts about Xia Changqing's sudden appearance. Chapter 121, Pursuit. The rain was getting more and more urgent. The bean-sized raindrops hit people's bodies, and there would be a faint stinging feeling on the skin. Xia Changqing nodded to Gregory and his three disciples, and did not explain too much why he was here. To be honest, Xia Changqing thought that his communication with Gregory was just a casual acquaintance, and the two had different purposes. Now that he had rescued William, he had also resolved the cause and effect of using Gregory to find Malkin. "Master Gregory, I still have to track Malkin, so I won't talk to you more. If there is a chance in the future, I will treat you to a drink again." Xia Changqing nodded politely, took his equipment, and quickly left the place. Behind him, Gregory couldn't help but want to call Xia Changqing. Malkin had already flown away in the form of magic dragon. How could he, a mortal, catch up with Malkin with his feet? But before Gregory could say anything, Xia Changqing's figure disappeared like a ghost in 3 or 2 steps. After leaving Gregory and his 3 disciples behind, Xia Changqing turned into a magic dragon, rushed into the sky, and chased after Malkin in the direction he left. The reason why he didn't rush to take action just now was because Xia Changqing was estimating Malkin's strength. Through the observation just now, Xia Changqing was able to confirm that Malkin might know much more witchcraft than him, but the total amount of magic power in his body was definitely not as much as his. Malkin, who was so embarrassed by being restricted by a silver net, was not very powerful now. At least before the blood moon came completely, Xia Changqing was not afraid of her and could even suppress her. Of course, Xia Changqing's purpose of this trip was not to suppress or kill Malkin. His purpose has always been clear, that is, to learn enough witchcraft from Malkin. Xia Changqing's current state is that he has magic power, but has no way to use it. The magic dragon flapped its wings and chased after Malkin. In the arrow that just hit Malkin, Xia Changqing attached a trace of shadow power to it. As long as he sensed that trace of shadow power, Xia Changqing would not be afraid of losing Malkin. In the distant mountains, there is a steep and precipitous mountain. The mountain is at a right angle of 90 degrees. There is no way for ordinary people to climb to the top of the mountain. People don't know that at the top of the mountain, there is a large basin with an ancient palace built in the basin. This is Pando Mountain, a solitary peak that looks like it is covered with snow all year round, but it is a palace of the Dark Queen Malkin. Only those who belong to the dark forces can reach here through witchcraft. After decades of absence, Malkin finally returned to Pando Mountain. She flapped her wings with pain, crossed the sky, and landed in the square in front of the already decayed and slightly dilapidated basin palace. When the dragon landed, he couldn't even master his balance and couldn't help but stumble, almost landing on his face. Malkin couldn't help but scream in pain. She turned around and bit the arrow with her teeth and pulled it out with force. The barb on the arrowhead took off a piece of flesh from her wing, making Malkin scream again. After pulling out the arrow from the other wing with the same trick, Malkin's magic power started to work, and the blood hole on the wing recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. After the wound completely disappeared, Malkin regained her human form. She frowned slightly. Although the two hidden arrows did not cause much damage to her, the pain was real. Thinking about the person who shot the cold arrow in her heart, Malkin walked towards her palace. When Queen Malkin returned, someone had been waiting here for a long time. Still staying in Pando Mountain is Malkin's sister. She is also a witch, but she is not as powerful as Malkin. Malkin painfully discovered that her sister's face was burned by Gregory, but now she has returned, and her magic power has been restored under the effect of the blood moon. It is not difficult to restore her sister's original appearance. However, Malkin's hatred for Gregory has become stronger. She plans to summon her original subordinates and let the world live under the shadow of the dark forces again. Malkin was planning to take her sister and use magic to restore the palace to its original appearance. At this moment, the two sisters suddenly heard a roar mixed with magic from a distance. When the two sisters looked up at the distant sky with surprise, their expressions became more exciting. Because under the gaze of the two, a figure slowly flew from a distance. It was a magic dragon. A magic dragon that was larger than the magic dragon transformed by Queen Malkin. A strange magic dragon. Who is the person? This thought flashed through the minds of the Malkin sisters at the same time. Although witches have more or less the ability to transform into monsters, a witch who can transform into a magic dragon is definitely a powerful witch. Among the dark forces, only Malkin can transform into a dragon. Even her sister is inferior. Just as the two sisters were thinking, the strange dragon in the sky had flapped its wings and landed, and restored its human appearance on the ground. It was a young strange man. Malkin's sisters were very sure that they had never seen this person in the dark forces. Who are you? The younger sister stepped forward and looked at Xia Changqing with vigilance. She couldn't help but feel nervous. When the young man landed in front of her, she had already felt the vast magic power in his body. Fortunately, Xia Changqing didn't know what the other party was thinking, otherwise he would really laugh out loud. Xia Changqing thought that his magic power was not much. Everything is afraid of comparison. It's not that Xia Changqing is too strong, but that Malkin and others are too weak. From the beginning to the end, Gregory was able to fight against Malkin and others. In addition to his excellent skills, he mainly relied on external forces. Even Gregory, who is strictly speaking just an ordinary person with good skills, can chase Malkin and make the entire dark forces hide everywhere without any ability to fight back. From this, we can see how unbearable Malkin and his dark forces are. However, Xia Changqing doesn't care about these. He just comes for the witchcraft of Malkin. So Xia Changqing smiled and said to Malkin, "Long time no see, Queen. I wonder if you still remember me." Xia Changqing just opened his mouth and immediately awakened the memory deep in Malkin's mind. She remembered deeply that it was 5 years ago and there was a good opportunity to escape in front of her. Chapter 122, Surrender or Die. It's you. Apart from Gregory, there was only one other person who impressed Malkin the most, a young man. The young man who had tricked her 5 years ago. Malkin didn't listen to what Xia Changqing said next. After she confirmed in her heart that the person in front of her was the young man 5 years ago, Malkin suddenly jumped up. The slender and sharp tail flexibly sprang out from behind Malkin, shooting straight at Xia Changqing like a spear. The sharp tail broke through the air, causing Xia Changqing to exclaim. In a flash, he quickly bent backwards and dodged the stab. Before Malkin made a move, Xia Changqing had already prepared himself mentally. He looked up at the sharp tail that passed in front of him, which reflected a cold light faintly, making people forget and feel chilled. Queen Malkin's tail is her most important means of attack. I don't know why. As a witch, her main means of attack is actually the tail formed by the magic dragon. This tail is really powerful, piercing gold and breaking stone, like a waving arm. After the attack missed, the pointed tail instantly straightened, suddenly bent down at a right angle of 90 degrees, and stabbed Xia Changqing's head again. Xia Changqing kicked the ground with his feet, slid backwards, and landed in the courtyard. In order to transform into a magic dragon and catch up with Malkin, Xia Changqing put his sword somewhere else, which was also a point that made him helpless. He still had no means of storage, and the transformation into a magic dragon is just a change in the body, and weapons cannot be brought along. It stands to reason that after Xia Changqing transformed into a magic dragon, his clothes would also be torn. This was the conclusion he came to when he transformed for the first time. Of course, at that time, because Xia Changqing was still wearing silver chainmail, his ability to transform into a magic dragon was suppressed. Later, Xia Changqing had experience, and now his human form is actually not wearing clothes. This seemingly leather armor was automatically converted from the magic dragon. Let's get back to the point. After seeing Xia Changqing dodge her attack, Queen Malkin's expression of anger on her face became even more intense. She took 2 steps forward, stretched out her arms, and transformed into a dragon, flying towards Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing's expression did not change. When Malkin was about to pounce in front of him, and the sharp teeth in the other's open mouth were clearly visible, he shook his body slightly, and his hands had already transformed into thick dragon claws, grabbing Malkin's open mouth. Roar! A violent roar sounded. Xia Changqing pressed Malkin's head with his front paws and threw it hard to the ground, using the moment of being a dragon to press Malkin under him. Bang! Malkin's head was pressed by Xia Changqing and smashed hard on the ground. The gravel cracked, and a smell of rust spread. What Malkin never expected was that Xia Changqing would have such great power. However, as early as the last world, Xia Changqing had greatly improved his physical fitness by using the white blood of the blood ancestor. Therefore, after he turned into a dragon, his strength increased several times. Under his strong pressure, Malkin had no chance to turn over. Even because Xia Changqing pressed Malkin's head with his 2 forelimbs, the Dark Queen couldn't even open her mouth to roar. Malkin had never suffered such a great humiliation except for the loss at Gregory's hands. In this situation, where she couldn't even turn over, she actually forgot how to fight back for a moment. 2 drops of humiliating tears dripped from Malkin's eyes. At this time, in Xia Changqing's view, the hideous dragon was actually a little pitiful. However, Xia Changqing knew very well in his heart that Malkin must hate him to the bone. Only by suppressing her with absolute power could Malkin be honest. The class division within the dark forces is clear. Whoever has the bigger fist has the final say. Disobedience means death. Submit or die. Xia Changqing pressed Malkin to the ground, lowered his head, and looked at Malkin with dark golden eyes. But before Xia Changqing could get the answer from Malkin, a figure knocked him off Malkin's body. Xia Changqing waved his wings to keep his figure stable in the air, watching Malkin get up from the ground and join his sister. Unlike the dragon image that Malkin transformed into, the image of his sister's transformation was more like a large bird of prey, which did not seem to have much deterrence. The two sisters, one black and one white, attacked Xia Changqing together after joining together. Xia Changqing was not afraid of the coming, because his advantage was that he had 2 more forelimbs than the two sisters, while Malkin and his sister's arms had all transformed into wings. With these advantages, Xia Changqing was not at a disadvantage in a 1-on-2 battle. He opened his 2 front paws and slapped the 2 Malkin sisters one by one, making them unable to find their way north or south. The Malkin sisters rushed up quickly and flew back even faster. Before the 2 of them could stabilize their bodies in the air, Xia Changqing took advantage of the victory and pursued them. His figure flashed quickly, leaving wounds on the 2 sisters. Facing Xia Changqing, who completely suppressed them in terms of strength, the 2 sisters spread their wings and fled far away, not daring to fight Xia Changqing in close combat. Xia Changqing didn't care. He hovered over the palace of Malkin. This palace was a symbol of Malkin's power as the Queen of Darkness. The other party could escape, but the temple could not. After seeing that Xia Changqing had no intention of continuing to attack, the Malkin sisters tried to stop in the distance and regain their human form. "What are you going to do?" Malkin's question made Xia Changqing feel funny. "Queen Malkin, you were the first to attack me, and now you are blaming me? I don't want to get entangled with you on this issue. 5 years ago, when I was locked up in the underground cave by Gregory, you took the opportunity to learn the method of transformation from me. Wasn't that what you did?" Malkin's eyes were blazing, glaring at Xia Changqing. "Yes, I did lie to you," Xia Changqing said indifferently. "If he didn't have this bit of shamelessness, how could he survive in the future? It's good that you admit it. But what can I do if I admit it? Queen Malkin, I don't know if you have recognized the reality. You are no match for me now. The dark forces respect strength. Now that I'm strong, you can only submit to me. Arrogant, do you want to become the new king of the dark forces?" Malkin showed a mocking smile. She could become the queen of the dark forces, relying not only on her strong strength. More importantly, Malkin would provide shelter for the people of the dark forces and support them in realizing their ambition to control mankind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123, The New King Ascends the Throne. There is no point in talking without saying anything. Xia Changqing looked at Malkin and knew in his heart that with Malkin's pride, how could she submit to an unknown person like him? Everything still depends on strength. Then let's fight. Malkin, if you can defeat me, I can help you deal with Gregory. Okay. Malkin agreed immediately. Compared with Xia Changqing, who deceived her 5 years ago, Malkin hated Gregory even more. And the rules of the dark forces are like this. The strong can make the rules, and the weak can only submit to the strong. In the battle just now, Malkin did not use her full strength. Although she admitted that Xia Changqing's strength was also very strong, she did not think that she would definitely lose. If she could gain a strong subordinate, it would be a good thing. Then, Xia Changqing put forward his own conditions. "If I defeat you, Malkin, you have to help me control the dark forces. I promise you." Malkin did not think about it for too long and agreed. She did not look at her sister's face that was hesitant to speak. In the dark forces, only strength can speak. If she really couldn't defeat the opponent, even if she was killed, there was nothing she could do. The rules of the dark forces were so cruel. Then let's start. As soon as Xia Changqing finished speaking, he ran forward. While leaping into the air, he had already transformed into a magic dragon, carrying a gust of wind and rushing towards Malkin. Malkin also twisted his body and transformed into a magic dragon. She roared at Xia Changqing, and the strong magic power turned into an invisible impact force, which spread directly to the surroundings. Xia Changqing's body was stagnant as he rushed forward. He was hit head-on by this magic power and flew backwards. He could only flap his wings vigorously to stop his body when he was about to hit the palace. After seeing Malkin use such an ability, Xia Changqing was not surprised but happy. What he lacked now was the method to apply magic power, which made him have magic power, but could not use it. Xia Changqing wanted to mobilize the magic power in his body, to form the same shockwave as Malkin, but unfortunately failed. On the other side, Malkin did not stop. She used her magic to make the collapsed stone pillars around her float up. Malkin waved her hand, and the rubble and stone pillars were like cannonballs, smashing towards Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing was shocked. The flying speed of the rubble was too fast. He had no time to dodge. In a flash, Xia Changqing only had time to wrap his wings around his whole body. Bang, bang, bang. Xia Changqing felt as if he was in a storm. The stones kept hitting his wings, hitting him back again and again. He fell from the sky and was buried by the stones at the entrance of the palace. The piled up stones directly blocked the palace gate. Xia Changqing, who was hit by the storm like stones, felt pain all over his body. I underestimated Malkin. Xia Changqing thought to himself that fortunately his physical fitness was very strong. Although he looked bloody now, those were small wounds caused by the rubble, and he was not injured. Thank you, blood ancestor. Xia Changqing stood up, flapped his wings suddenly, fanned the stones that trapped him, and flew out. At this time, Xia Changqing looked extremely miserable. His wings flapped on both sides, and there were scattered holes of various sizes on his membrane. Blood oozed from the wounds on his body, staining his body red. Give up, kid, you are not my opponent. Xia Changqing was unmoved. The battle had just begun. How could he give up so easily? Xia Changqing flapped his wings and flew into the sky. The gravel followed behind him. Facing such a rogue trick of Malkin, Xia Changqing could only run for his life, but his speed was 1 point faster than the speed of the gravel group. So it was not an easy thing for the gravel group commanded by Malkin to catch up with Xia Changqing. However, Malkin had already revealed a smile of victory at the corner of her mouth. She was confident that she could make Xia Changqing exhausted before her magic power was exhausted. A rare spectacle appeared in the sky above Mount Pando. A huge dragon was hovering over Mount Pando, and behind it, a chain of gravel was chasing after it. But before Malkin could be happy for too long, Xia Changqing suddenly sped up, swooped down from the sky, and headed straight for Malkin. Malkin was startled and fled in a hurry. She had just seen Xia Changqing's melee power. She was out of her mind to choose to fight with Xia Changqing in close combat. However, facing Xia Changqing's deliberate acceleration and dive, Malkin didn't leave the original place for long before being caught up by Xia Changqing from behind. Queen, be careful. The sister's voice of warning just sounded, and it suddenly stopped, because Xia Changqing had already grabbed Malkin with his hands and feet. Get out of the way. Malkin screamed, and the slender tail behind him stabbed towards Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing endured the pain. Anyway, he was thick-skinned, and not afraid of 1 or 2 hits. At this time, because Xia Changqing had held Malkin back, the flying stones had already caught up with the 2 of them. Amid Malkin's screams, the flying stones hit the 2 of them directly. The 2 dragons fell from the sky, spinning and hitting the ground hard, followed by the gravel hitting them. Bang, bang, bang. The gravel, like rain, hit the 2 dragons, gradually buried them together, forming a stone mountain. Queen. The younger sister screamed in fear and quickly ran to the edge of the stone mountain, trying to use magic to separate the stone mountain. However, Malkin's magic still remained on these stones, so the younger sister could not help at all for a while. Time passed quietly, and while the younger sister was anxiously waiting, the magic of Malkin on the stone finally dissipated. The entire stone mountain collapsed, and Xia Changqing staggered out of it. Pa. Xia Changqing spat a few times with stone chips on his mouth, and crawled out from under the pile of stones. What did you do to my sister? After seeing Xia Changqing come out, his sister rushed forward directly, her eyes full of anger. Instead of watching me here, why don't you find your sister from under there quickly? If you wait too long, I'm not sure what will happen. Xia Changqing said indifferently. He was very satisfied with this operation of giving someone a taste of their own medicine. Malkin was finally defeated by the flying stones that she controlled. It was unknown whether she would be angry and embarrassed after she woke up. Chapter 124 Love and Hate. In less than half an hour, Malkin woke up from her coma. Malkin, who faced Xia Changqing again, fell into silence for the first time. She kept her promise and respected Xia Changqing as the new Dark King. But Xia Changqing's real goal was not to become a Dark King, and he was not interested in controlling the human world. Xia Changqing proposed to learn from each other and wanted to have an in-depth discussion with Malkin on the issues of witchcraft and magic. Malkin was confused by Xia Changqing's strange request. "You are already so powerful, do you still need me to answer questions for you?" Xia Changqing just smiled, and he didn't have any embarrassed thoughts. He told Malkin very frankly that he was just a latecomer, and Malkin was nominally his enlightenment teacher. Malkin didn't expect that Xia Changqing, the new Dark King, would respect her as a teacher, which made Malkin's heart slightly moved, and she no longer rejected Xia Changqing's suggestion. In fact, Malkin's mind is very simple. No matter what, Xia Changqing is a member of the Dark Forces. If she teaches him as a teacher, it will be no different from her ruling the Dark Forces herself. It must be said that Malkin is far better than Xia Changqing in controlling magic power. Under Malkin's words and deeds, Xia Changqing's strength has changed dramatically every day, and he has become more and more proficient in controlling magic power. During this period, Malkin did not do only this one thing. She wanted to recall her former subordinates and tell the people of the Dark Forces that their queen is back. Xia Changqing did not stop Malkin from doing this and did not mind Malkin continuing to call herself the Queen of Darkness. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. The blood moon in the sky is changing from a crescent to a full moon. When the full moon appears, it is also the time when the free magic power is the most concentrated. Malkin's subordinates came to Pandao Mountain in twos and threes. To be called subordinates, they are just a few big cats and small cats, which is too shabby. Xia Changqing didn't care about this at all. He stayed in the palace every day and let Malkin do whatever he wanted. For some purpose, Malkin didn't say much about Xia Changqing. Therefore, Malkin's men have never seen this new Dark King. Apart from the Malkin sisters, the only one who knew where Xia Changqing was the younger sister's daughter. Alice, the heroine, looked okay, but her A grade was not good enough, which was a little disappointing. After being silent for half a month, Malkin finally couldn't help it. She was locked up in the underground cage by Gregory for so long, and now she finally got out of it, but the resentment in her heart has not been vented. After gathering all the original men, Malkin decided to take action against the human world. Malkin stood at the door of the palace, looking at the men standing at the bottom of the steps. She had already decided to go down the mountain to kill today. With a veiled look at the depths of the palace, Malkin decided not to tell Xia Changqing, who was practicing hard, about this matter. The young man who ascended to the throne of the Dark Lord by force. Since he likes to practice, there is no need to bother him with these small things. In fact, it was because Xia Changqing forgot about such a thing. During this period, he had been obsessed with studying and controlling magic power, and now he could use magic power to control some objects around him. Without Xia Changqing knowing anything, Malkin led his team to the Wild City, the largest human city in the surrounding area, which suffered a heavy blow from the Dark Forces. But what Malkin didn't expect was that Gregory happened to be in the walled city with two apprentices. The battle between good and evil was about to break out. Xia Changqing believed that Malkin's men were only 2 or 3 big cats and small cats, which was not unreasonable. Under Gregory's command, the human guards formed a defensive formation and used silver powder and silver nets to kill Malkin and others by surprise. After losing several men, Malkin fled back to Pandao Mountain with the remaining personnel. Standing at the door of a room in the palace, Malkin gritted his teeth and walked in. "Malkin, what do you want to talk to me about?" Xia Changqing opened his eyes and looked at the slightly embarrassed Malkin in front of him. He was puzzled as to why she suddenly came to him when she was not dreaming of dominating with her men. "I respect you as the new Dark King. So do you also have to fulfill your obligations as the Dark King?" "As the Dark King, there are obligations?" Xia Changqing's head was full of question marks. How could he not know about such a thing? Then, Malkin told all the reasons. "Gregory has caused us heavy losses. He will soon bring people to Pandao Mountain. Do you think you will have time to practice here in peace?" Xia Changqing thought seriously about Malkin's words and thought that what she said made some sense. In that case, why don't I leave Pando Mountain? Xia Changqing said as a matter of course. Gregory knew that Pando Mountain was Malkin's territory, so he wanted to fight to Pando Mountain. So why don't he just leave? There is nothing wrong with this approach. What nonsense are you talking about? Malkin felt that her chest hurt from anger. The demon hunters were coming to her door, but the king of their dark forces didn't want to kill them, but ran away. Don't you have any awareness of being the king of darkness? Malkin's eyes began to reveal resentment. She thought that Xia Changqing must want to deceive her feelings like Gregory. Of course, this kind of feeling is not a love between men and women. Xia Changqing waved his hand indifferently and said indifferently, tell me, what is worth remembering on this Pando Mountain? Is it this palace or these broken stones? What does this have to do with the palace? This is a matter of face. Malkin didn't say these words in her heart. She was completely disappointed with Xia Changqing, who deceived her again. No man is good. This is what Malkin thinks now. She has decided to fight Gregory to the death here. Xia Changqing got what he wanted and perfectly presented the image of a ruthless scumbag. After Malkin left, Xia Changqing left the palace, turned into a dragon, and flew away from Mount Pando. After such a long time, Xia Changqing almost forgot where he had hidden Winter. To be honest, he had no interest in the love-hate relationship between Gregory and Malkin. Chapter 125 The Pirate King's Man. The sea, the endless sea. Xia Changqing narrowed his eyes and looked around. No matter how he looked, there was only sea water around him, unchanged. It had been half a day since he came to this world. Xia Changqing remembered the experience of falling directly into the sea when he just regained consciousness, so he couldn't help but transform into a Zorn horse hunter and output to the system crazily. If he hadn't learned the method of transforming into a magic dragon in the last world, he might have just come to this world and his body would have sunk into the sea. After transforming into a magic dragon, Xia Changqing flew in the sky for half a day, but he didn't see the shadow of land. The surrounding scenery remained unchanged, except for the sea water. It was still sea water. After finally finding this small island, Xia Changqing was able to land and rest for a while. It was called an island, but its area was only about 10 square meters. Xia Changqing's magic dragon body landed on it, and his wings spread out, which was enough to cover the entire island. Xia Changqing didn't expect that there were 2 coconut trees growing on the island that were so small that it couldn't be any smaller. But now his body has been transformed by magic. Even if he doesn't eat or drink for a long time, he can still survive. However, with coconuts in front of him, Xia Changqing doesn't mind tasting the sweet coconut juice. Xia Changqing is not too worried about his current situation. Not to mention his ability to transform into a magic dragon. Just the body transformed by magic guarantees his ability to survive. Therefore, it is normal to treat the current situation as a vacation. Xia Changqing already knows that this is a world of Pirates of the Caribbean, and the system has rarely issued him a task to become the man of the Pirate King. At first, Xia Changqing didn't think this task was difficult. But when he carefully read the system's explanation, his face turned green. Become the man of the Pirate King. Just a few words, but there are traps hidden in them. You taste it. You taste it carefully. That's right. The system's requirement is not to make Xia Changqing the Pirate King, but to make him the man of the Pirate King. Of course, whether this Pirate King is a man or a woman is not the system's responsibility. It only needs to make Xia Changqing his man. Xia Changqing has a motherfuck in his heart, but he doesn't know whether to say it or not. It couldn't be easier for him to become the Pirate King. As far as Xia Changqing knew, although the world of Caribbean pirates also had mysterious powers, and even artifacts such as the Trident of Poseidon, people like the protagonist Jack were real mortals. Xia Changqing could easily become a Pirate King if he wanted to, but now, he needed to think about it carefully. If he wanted to complete this task, he needed to find a woman he liked first and support her to become the Pirate King. It didn't matter whether she was in love or not, as long as she was beautiful. That's right, Xia Changqing was such a superficial person. Because there was no time limit for this task, Xia Changqing was not in a hurry. He had plenty of time. So Xia Changqing acted leisurely and even had the leisure to lie on the beach and have a good sleep after drinking coconut juice. When Xia Changqing woke up, it was already night. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and the vast sea was shining with waves under the moonlight, which was magnificent. After waking up, Xia Changqing felt refreshed. He checked his belongings, and after making sure that nothing was left out, he whistled, spread his wings, and flew away from the island. Xia Changqing did not have a compass or anything like that, so he could only choose a direction to move forward. However, he believed that, since the system had thrown him on the sea, he must be not far from where humans gathered. It would not be necessary for him to cross the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. However, even if he had to cross the ocean to return to land, Xia Changqing would not find it difficult. At most, he would have to fly a little farther. In fact, Xia Changqing had only flown for one night, and when the sky was about to brighten, he saw a passing ship on the sea. Although a thick fog rose from the sea, because it was close to dawn, everything on the sea was visible under Xia Changqing's dark golden eyes. The flag flying high on the ship made Xia Changqing recognize that it should be a British ship. In fact, Xia Changqing would rather encounter a pirate ship so that he could take it for himself with peace of mind. But he could also find a way to get on this ship and find out where he is and what time it is. However, before Xia Changqing could figure out whether to pretend to be a castaway and board the ship or to conquer the people on the ship by force, he saw the fire in front of him that could not be covered by the thick fog. After a moment of slight surprise, Xia Changqing spread his wings and flew forward. It was also a ship that was on fire. Xia Changqing was not sure whether the other party was attacked by pirates or for some other reason, but he could see the bodies floating in the sea around him. With a thought in his mind, Xia Changqing already had a plan. The British ship must pass by here according to its route. Xia Changqing planned to pretend to be a castaway on this ship. If the people on the British ship did not intend to save him, Xia Changqing decided to conquer them directly by force. After circling on the sea for a while, Xia Changqing noticed that the British ship was approaching, so he dived down and landed smoothly on a floating raft on the sea with the help of the thick fog. Xia Changqing sat cross-legged on the raft, waiting for the other party to come to rescue. Xia Changqing didn't have to wait too long. After the other party found the burning and sunken merchant ship, they immediately lowered the boat and sent people to search and rescue the survivors. From a distance, Xia Changqing saw that those people were wearing uniform clothes. These people seemed to be British Navy. This thought flashed through his mind. The next moment, Xia Changqing was waving his arms and shouting loudly, "Save me! Here!" Xia Changqing shouted these words in English. He had no choice but to be afraid that the other party would not understand him if he spoke Chinese. However, Xia Changqing had already planned that he would disguise himself as an adventurer from the Qing dynasty in the east. He was not good at English, so he could not understand some of the questions asked by the other party, and he had no way to answer them. This was a very reasonable thing. "Quick, over there, there are people there." On the British Navy side, after discovering Xia Changqing's figure, they quickly rowed the boat over. "Don't be afraid, man, you are safe," the leading soldier shouted to Xia Changqing loudly, but what surprised him was that this young man with an oriental face was unusually calm in the face of such a situation. It's a little too abnormally calm. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.